You should have done.
Recording in progress.
The City Council of the City of Wallis reserves the right to adjourn into executive session any time during the course of this meeting to discuss any of the matters listed below as authorized by Title 5, Chapter 551. I won't go through the numbers, but it's consultation with the attorney, deliberations about real property, deliberations about gifts and donations, personnel matters, deliberations about security devices, deliberations about competitive matters, and deliberation about economic development matters. If you will, stand and let's do the invocation and then the pledge. Father, we just ask that you be with us tonight. We thank you that all of us are healthy enough to be here this evening. We just ask that you be with those that are going through tough times in our community. We thank you for our employees. We thank you for our police officers. We ask that you continue to be over all of them and keep them safe, keep them healthy. Bless us with discernment tonight, Father, as we take care of this business. Thank you for Jesus. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we shoot a roll call and certification of quorum, please.
Jimmy Kern,
Here.
Belinda Heflin,
Here.
Debbie Bourne,
Here.
Clark Main,
Here.
and David Moore.
Here.
Mayor, I certify we will form.
Thank you. Do we have anyone online with us this evening?
We got two.
All right. Any requests from the public? Is this one of them that signed up for the public?
Yes.
Okay. Miss Alice Hoffman? Hello.
I don't know how much y'all know about the Wallis City Chamber. We joined together to make an Austin County Chamber. We're gonna do a lot of things, and one of the first things we're doing is the Austin County Tour Lights. It's a self-guided tour. If you wanna be on the map for decorating your house for Christmas, just scan one of these two here, sign up for it, and it'll be the whole Austin County at your will whenever you want to join and go wherever the lights are at. It's gonna be really nice.
We probably need to post that on our Facebook
Yeah, I'll send it
page
to
to
you.
let our citizens know.
Right, and
about
there's
that.
also a sign up, you can sign up online also, so.
What's the deadline for sign up?
I believe the 14th of December.
Thanks.
Great.
And the second thing is, with Dora and I, we're representing the chamber. We wanted to make a donation to the Kids Cop for Christmas.
Okay, on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, we'd like to present this check to the Wallis PD for the Kids Cops in Christmas. The Chamber of Commerce is pleased to continue our support for such a great organization. Since the inception by the Wallis PD, the Chamber of Commerce has been a faithful supporter of the annual efforts to bring toys to our kids and community through Kids Cops in Christmas. Over the years, our organization has supported many groups within our community, such as this. We'd like to thank the Wallis PD for organizing and bringing joy into our community. We're looking forward to this year's get-together and hope this donation supports the effort and success of the event. Thank you, Chief, for all your help.
Great. Oh, your picture?
Here.
No, we got time.
Okay.
We got time.
Sorry about that. I might break it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, now Austin News.
She'll share it.
Great, thank y'all for that. Any other communications from the public?
No.
All right. Number 5, presentation by Heather Delso from Seidel Schrader on the fiscal year end, September 30th, 2023 audit.
For you. Open them out. Here's the instructions to him.
Thanks, Louise.
And then, yes, this copy. All right, so I think most of y'all are familiar faces, me, or vice versa. We've been through this, our third audit now in a short period of time, so we're getting y'all caught up. So if there's questions, stop me. I'll try to blow through pretty quickly, but also be detailed enough so y'all can get to the point. So if you turn into the third page of the bound copy, and this begins the auditor's report, and it's on our letterhead. And so you will see we have, so in the past it was an unqualified, it was a clean opinion. It is a qualified opinion this year. It's not concerned, so there was a new standard in 2023 related to conduit debt. And so there's required disclosures with that. And so the city does not have information for some of those disclosures. So we qualify the opinion for that because it is a required disclosure. But it did not impact the financial statements in the front. So numbers in the front are still good. It's just a disclosure in the back that's not adequate according to accounting standards. And so that's kind of what that first section there is talking about. And actually that whole first page talks about that and why it's a qualified opinion. On the next page is where responsibilities of management is. That's to prepare and present the financial statements. And then just below that, it's the responsibility of us as the auditor to express the opinion on the financial statements. Okay. On the following page, also requires supplementary information that we've seen in previous years, and also mentions that these are presented in accordance with government auditing standards. We refer to them as Yellow Book. You turn over to the following page is page 4, begins management discussion and analysis. And so this is a more condensed version of your financial statements. And so I went through these with Michelle to get this finished up because it should be prepared by management. And so it compares 22 to 23's operations and kind of what were significant changes year over year. So I won't go through all of those tonight, but that does go through page 8. So if you flip over to page 9, this begins the financial statements. And so you've got several columns here. So you have the primary government, so that's going to be your governmental activities, which is comprised of your general fund, the park fund, and the security technology fund as well. Your business type activities, that's the water and sewer fund, and you've got then your total. And then component units, so you have the EDC that's reflected here with those balances. So I won't go through all of the numbers here because this is our, we call full accrual government-wide basis. And so the difference between here and fund level later is here we reflect the capital assets, long-term debt type items as if you're running a business. So I won't cover all of those there. And the same on the following page, on page 10, you turn it sideways, the statement activities at the full accrual basis. And so again, you would then depreciate those assets on this statement. You would then expense them when you bought them on the fund level. So the third line from the bottom shows that change in net position for the governmental activities was a decrease of $239,000. Business type was an increase of $236,000. So in total, you were close to break even for those two activities. And then the EDC, a small increase, about $1,600 for the year. Okay, so you go then to page 11, it's that fund level statements. And so here you won't see those long-term assets, long-term liabilities. This would really match up with what your QuickBooks reports are going to show you. And so here's the governmental activities. So this is that general fund, park fund, and the security technology fund. I'm going to focus on that far right column for totals and looking at comparisons. So total assets about a third of the way down at $961,000 was down about $465,000 from the previous year. And a lot of that's due to a decrease in cash, about $350,000 from the previous year. Down the liability section just below there, about $342,000. That is down about $378,000. A piece of that's coming in the accounts payable was down about $100,000, and that was basically due to the grant, the timing of the grants and all that. So in 23, it was kind of more of a halt on it, and so we didn't have as much work at the end of 2023 as compared to 2022. Down the fund balance, so total for all three funds was about $590,000. So we look at the unassigned fund balance of $107,048 in the general fund. If you do that calculation of number of days in reserves at that point, it was about 28 days. So a pretty small number at that point in time. Usually it's about 90 days is what we like to usually see in there. So then the following page reconciles that fund balance to your net position that's back on page 9. And so that's those capital assets, your long-term debt type items. Then on page 13 is the statement of revenues expenditures for these same funds as well. So we'll look at that far right column. So grant revenue sitting at $132,000. That was down about $361,000 again with regards to the grant, the funding, and how that was all working from 22 to 23. So remember, 22 and 21 we had a single audit because funds exceeded that threshold of $750,000. In 23 they were below it, so we didn't have a single audit. Investment income at $55,000. That is up about $42,000. So we saw an increase in the interest rates from 22 to 23. Down in the expenditure section, about $1.6 million for the year was down about $125,000. Shifts in different sections. I won't go through all of those. The third line from the bottom shows that change in fund balance between the different funds. So in total, a decrease of about $90,000 during 2023. So most of that coming in the general fund is where that most of that decrease happened. Okay. Then on page 14, another reconciliation that gets you that change in fund balance, that change in that position that's back on page 10. Okay. On page 15, this is the statement, the budget to actual comparison for the general fund. And so that far right column will show you those variances. So the ones that are the most significant is the grant revenue and the capital outlay, and that's related to, I said, the timing of the grants. We budgeted for those, but didn't have that money coming in and going out during 2023. So if you look at the third line from the bottom on this page on the far right, you'll see, okay, how do we do compared to budget? So you budgeted a small surplus of like $1,800, but you actually had a deficit, so you were below budget, or you exceeded budget by $109,000. On page 16 is the same statement. It's for the park fund. Pretty minimal activity in there, so I won't necessarily cover any of that. But again, it shows that third line from the bottom shows how you did compared to budget. So you actually beat the budget by about $1,700 there. Okay. Any questions before I go to the business type activities or water sewer fund? I'm going kind of fast, but okay. So this is the water and sewer fund. And so total assets about halfway down the page at about $3.3 million. That is down about $337,000. Most of that's going to be in our grants receivable is down $243,000. Again, as I mentioned, the grant revenues and the timing there. And then in our capital assets, there were several things that were capitalized during the year. We had a water meter project for about $300,000, some sewer upgrades, and then offset with depreciation for the year. Saw then an increase of $235,000 in the capital assets section. Down in the liability section, so totaling $206,000, was down about $500,000 from last year. That's mainly in the accounts payable for $200,000 decrease related to the grant timing. And then also last year you had this unearned revenue related to grants, and that money got spent during 2023, so then we recognized that revenue in 2023 when it was spent. And so that was about $316,000 was sitting there last year. So net position about $3.1 million at the end of the year. And most of that sitting in your capital assets. On page 18, statement of revenues expenses for the enterprise or water and sewer fund. Your operating revenues were pretty flat from 22 to 23. Your operating expenses at $780,000 were up about $54,000. Most of that in the personnel costs had gone up about $43,000 from last year. You'll see non-operating revenues, grants proceeds of $395,000 was down a little bit from the previous year as well. So third line from the bottom shows that change in that position was increase of $236,610. So pretty a strong year there with having the grant money coming in. The following page, on page 19, statement of cash flows show how the cash changed year over year. About halfway down, you'll see net increase in cash and cash equivalents, about $15,000. And so the statement shows, okay, where did our cash go during the year? As far as the grant proceeds, capital asset acquisitions and things of that nature, and pay downs of debt. So we won't go through all of that. So if you turn to page 21, begins the notes to the financial statements. So note 1's the summary of accounting policies. I won't go through all of that. It goes through page 30, but I will point out on page 29, we do reference another new accounting standard that went into effect in 2023 related to subscription-based IT arrangements. There was no impact on your financial statements, but it was a new standard that was required to be adopted. So we do mention that there, the bottom of that page and top of page 30. Bottom of page 30 is note number 3 on deposits and investments. And so we disclosed that the city's accounts were covered by FDIC insurance and pledged securities at the end of the year. So everything good there. If you flip over a couple of pages to page 32, on capital assets shows what did we purchase and what did we dispose of during the year. And so in the governmental activities, you had some new lawnmowers and a new night mode radar gun that was at $38,905. And then in the kind of the bottom section of that table, you have some equipment or vehicles that are related to leases. And so you had some new leases for the police department vehicles that were then recorded during the year. On the next page is the same thing for the business type or your water and sewer activities. So a little more activity there. So the water sewer system of $390,000, I mentioned those additions earlier. The water meter project, the generator project, the two most significant items that were capitalized during the year. Okay, then on page 34, note 8 on long-term liabilities. So the city had one new note during 2023, and that's that second one listed there for the $26,799. So that was the balance as at the end of the year. Then on page 35, that shows those future payments required with those note agreements, and so when those would get paid off. Okay, then we'll flip over to page 36. Note 10 is the commitments the city has. Those are related to primarily your grant projects there, and then also on the municipal court fees that are getting paid back. Note the pension plan note just below there on page 36 goes through page 41, but we'll flip over to page 39, and I'll point out to you the table at the bottom there. And a reminder, this is part of the Texas Municipal Retirement System that the city contributes a percentage for the employees. And so we have what's called a net pension asset or a liability as a result of different actuarial assumptions. And it's always on a calendar year basis for them. And so the dates will always look a little weird here. And so as of December 31st, 2022, the city had a net pension asset of $56,000. So that's definitely very good shape there. Okay, so now if you turn to page 41, the city also has what we call OPEB or other post-employment benefits. This is also part of the Texas Municipal Retirement System. It's a group term life insurance plan that city contributes to. And so it's a similar type deal, it's the same as the pension. You have a liability that's recorded or an asset with respect to that. And so on page 43, you'll see that disclosure at the top that shows at December 31st, 2022, it was $41,940. So it actually came down from the previous year. Okay, on page 44 is note 14 on the leases. As I mentioned, there were some new police department vehicles that were added, but it shows the future payments on those leases going through 2028 for governmental activities, and then there are some smaller ones within the business type activities. Note 15 is that conduit that I mentioned earlier. So this is part of the disclosure, but then also you have to required to disclose the outstanding balances on that debt. The city doesn't have access to that information, so we couldn't disclose that. Okay. And then note 17 on the next page is subsequent events required disclosure there. Any questions on any of that? Okay, so we'll flip over to page 47. We'll turn sideways. This is part of the Texas Municipal Retirement System plan, and it's required information to present, and it's going to have 10 years of data on it. So once we get this next year, we'll have 10 years on here. And so what I like to point you to is that third line from the bottom, that 103.81%. So the city has always pretty well been in good shape, look like 98% all the way to above 100%. So definitely doing really well there. On the next page, the schedule of contributions, and so this shows, okay, what were we required to contribute versus what did we contribute? And the city is always doing above what that required percentage is, so that's showing that excess of $22,849 during 2023. And then the following page is part of the OPEB, that other post-employment benefits, and it shows the OPEB liability also will eventually have 10 years of data as well. That ends the book piece of it. Do you have any questions on any of that? Yes.
How'd you do it so fast?
Trying to keep y'all moving along. Okay, so then there's 2 communication letters addressed to council, standard communication letters with every audit. And so this first letter should begin with audits of the financial statements. And so this one, if we had any significant difficulties or disagreements with management, we would communicate those here. And there were none of those, so clean communication there. If you turn over to page 2, as I mentioned, that new accounting standard is disclosed kind of about a third of the way down there. And then at the very bottom, the significant estimates in your financial statements there related to depreciation of assets, your allowance for doubtful accounts with respect to AR or accounts receivable, your lease balances, and then also the pension and OPEB balances. On page 3, then we begin listing those adjustments during the audit that we made. Typical cutoff adjustments we're making as we come in after year end and can see, okay, where these revenues, expenses, which period they should be placed in. So I'll go with Michelle to get those booked, and so we'll have those good to go for then 2024. You then turn to the final page of the communication letter. This is our schedule of unadjusted audit differences, and so these are differences that we did have during the audit. We said, okay, we're going to pass on making these adjustments, but we still want to make you aware of what those were. So in our opinion, they were not significant enough to make those adjustments, but still, again, we want to point them out to you what those were. Any questions on that communication? Okay, and then the final letter is we call our internal control letter. And so as part of every audit, we'll obtain understanding of controls and procedures in place at the city. And we use that to design our audit procedures. Now, we will not express an opinion on the effectiveness of internal control, but it's used, like I said, to design our audit procedures. And so if you turn to the 3rd page, this begins where it's called Summary Schedule of Findings and Responses. These are all pretty much the same ones as you saw in the 22 audit, except we did take one off from 22 to 23. So you had 4 last year, we're down to 3. So continue to keep making those improvements or things there. So the first one, that municipal court item, the segregation of duties being a smaller group, there you don't have as much opportunity to segregate those duties. So we do recommend that monthly reconciliation of the municipal court activity to the general ledger activity. Utility is kind of the same thing. You've got one person doing most things there, so making sure you do have those offsetting controls of the review of the bank statements and those adjustments as well. So keeping up what's being done there. So that process is good, just making sure to keep up what's being done. And then on the following page, general ledger, same kind of deal. You have one person performing a lot of duties, recording transactions, performing the bank reconciliations and things of that nature. And so making sure that you do have all journal entries are reviewed by someone other than their preparer. So keep doing that each month as well.
Do you don't think we need to add this as an agenda item for next month, talk about?
I do, because we don't have a formal, just a sanity check system. That's really what she's talking about.
Well, and we didn't put it on the agenda either to address anything from tonight, so we could at least have it on the agenda to.
And I gave a letter to the mayor that has our lesser control deficiencies that we've mentioned. Most of those are all the same as last year, but those are still, we think, are important items, and Michelle has seen a copy of it as well. And
that way we can talk about some of these also.
That's right, and reach out if y'all have questions on any of those. Definitely more than happy to help on that. So,
Great.
yes. Any questions for me? Anything?
No, thank you for getting it done.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Moving on to consent agenda. This portion of the agenda consists of items considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion unless separate discussion is required by city council member. And these are for the minutes of October 16th that were in the packet and October 29th.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the minutes for October 16 and October 29.
I'll second.
Motion by Alderman Clark, second by Halpin. All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, that motion carries. Department reports, 7A, Public Works Monthly Report.
Yes, sir. Other than here, we have our submittal for lead and copper. It was already turned in and submitted for the lead and copper inventory throughout citywide. And we're in the process of right now sending out the notification letters to those individual addresses that either it's got galvanized piping or they didn't quite know what it was. So that we're in the process of doing that now. I don't know exactly how many we have to send out, but it's quite a few. But there's still a lot of stuff up in the air, but we're going on the premise right now that we have until October of 2027 to have all of this updated and corrected, if you will. So, but again, like I said, there's a lot of stuff up in the air about can they, will they, can they not, how far can the cities actually push the envelope. So they're still, that's above our pay grade, they're still ironing all of that out up in the state and the feds. So, but we're doing what we were told to, instructed to do for now. So that we are working on that. The water well, the rehab project is they're just waiting for all the stuff that they need to order to come in before they come back over here and start putting everything back together. And they scrubbed it. They actually said it looks good for the age that it is.
Good.
But they said they're going to look again. Once they get everything, they're going to run the camera down in it again and see if there's anything else they need to do. And if not, they'll start putting everything back together as far as the pump wise and get it back up and running. Right now, everything seems to be running good with just well 2 operating everything, other than we're just down one well. He is looking into, Befco is looking into getting with a couple of people, the water well people and a couple other contract vendors to see about maybe getting updated SCADA system-wide. So he's still working on that. He just wanted to see where they were at with the well before he really started working on that because of the funding part of it. And as y'all know, we did have the one tractor that was stolen. So I know Chief has already been working on that. So, but other than that, everything is so far just fixing leaks. It's just seems like we get a little rain and we end up getting 2 or 3 leaks. And dries up, we do it for a while, and then another rain, and here we go again. So we do have contractors in town, the fiber optic people, new crew, giving us a little issues, but we're trying to work through it. They're trying to get them to understand that they need to notify us before they just come here and start drilling, because they're on one part of town and that's all we know. The next way on the other side of town, and here's 2 crews working. So anyway, we're working on that. The head guy is working with us real well. Chief gave me that number to that from Frontier, that Russell or David or whatever his name is, Chief.
Yes.
He's contacted me and he said if he gets any problems, he will come out here and take care of themselves. So, right now, we're just trying to stay on top of them so they damage less than if we would have been there.
Mayor,
Royce, I don't recall hearing anything about this lead testing. Are we testing everybody's houses and for lead, or
We
bring me
do,
up to date? I don't.
we do every 2 years, I think it's lead and copper. There's so many addresses that we have to submit to TCEQ throughout the system. And we take photos to them, they fill them up, we send them off for testing. This is completely different. This is through the Clean Water Act. And this come out about a year ago, maybe a little more. I can't remember the exact time, but it's we had to go through and you had to determine on the city side if you had any lead or galvanized piping, and then we were supposed to determine on the private side if it was lead, galvanized copper, or unknown.
If it was coming from the city or from them.
Well,
Basically.
right, but if it's like us, I mean, we don't have any lead in the town. Everything's copper or plastic. There's no lead piping or anything. So now that was done, submitted, and now we're on the private side of it, which is what's all TCEQ mandate. This was, I think, Councilman, we had a year, which we did it, when we had the accurate people, when they come out and did our meter installation. They did it as part of that. So they put all that in a spreadsheet for us. We had to get it all compiled, and we shipped it off. And it comes to the time, these letters, we gotta get them out by the end of this month. So that's what we're working on now, is just going through the spreadsheet, filling out the little one-page form, to send it out to the ones that are on the addresses that they said is unknown or lead or galvanized pipe.
Are we looking at a serious problem?
No, sir. No,
Okay.
no, not at all.
Okay.
This is just making everybody aware that if your line is lead or galvanized, you may be, maybe issues down the road, which that's part of the argument, the fight is how you gonna make, how am I gonna go to chief and tell him, hey, your line is galvanized up here, you need to replace it. That's what they're still arguing about, I guess, if you want to call it, for lack of words.
Okay.
But yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So Royce, going back to the water well, I'm reading the report here. Contract time's up at the end of the year. An extended time frame, but contract completion date towards the end of January 2025 could be extended, but if we add like the SCADA scope.
Okay.
So that's what it's saying here. How are we gonna meet these dates?
Yeah, that's there. The Bradley with Bethel, I've been in contact with him pretty regular. He said the problem they're having right now is just, he said there might have been some screws missing on the bowl of the actual pump. And he said that they're having problems. They'll get 2 screws and they won't get all 7 of them, or 9, or whatever the case may be. And he said until they get all that, I asked him the same thing, were we going to have enough time? And he said, yeah, that's why he was already working on the SCADA stuff now.
Is that SCADA gonna be a change order
No, according to him,
for
no.
cost?
No.
Because in here it's stating like it might be.
Well, but he told me, but the last I talked to him, and that was a week and a half ago, and he told me he don't foresee any issue on it as far as a change order, as long as it don't reach that number plateau.
Okay.
Royce, I got a question on the contractors that we got in town. We are letting one of our contractors stage at the city barn?
Not any longer. That's what I'm working on right now. We were,
Okay.
because they needed a secure place. They had those big, I don't know what you call them. It's what they pull their pipe burst and pull the pipe with. And they just asked if we had a place to park them. Told me, yeah, don't necessarily like it, but after all this happened, I got with the engineer and with them, and pretty much told them that y'all got to find some place to park other than here.
'Cause I noticed that after the incident, I noticed that I came through about 5:30, of course, we were shut down, but our gate was open and they had people going in and out.
Yeah. And I gave one of our gate openers to the superintendent over the job, and he was the one that out here with them. But like I said, it's just, after this, like I told them, I'm not
Yeah.
accusing nobody, I'm not saying anything, but y'all gotta find a place. And they asked me if I knew of anybody that had property around in town here where they could, even if they had to put up a temporary fence, they would put up a temporary fence. But they totally understood
Alright,
why. So
I was just-
hopefully by the end of this week, they'll have their stuff moved out and someplace else.
Thank you, Royce.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? All right. Police Department and Administrator monthly report.
The police department, for the month of October, we ran 62 calls, 23 assists, 3 investigations, 4 felony arrests, 5 misdemeanor arrests, 186 citations, and 85 warrants. Busy month.
Is it my imagination or is there just more traffic?
No, it's not your imagination. There's a lot more traffic than what it used to be. On the admin side, talking about the city barn and sewer plant. So we've been going by there at night, and there's a problem with lighting out there. There's several lights out, and we need to fix those and add additional lighting. Here's some photos on that, if you'd like to look at them. Cameras. The camera system that we have at the city barn and Menard Park they're inadequate now. They're on and off, they're glitchy. The DVR's burned up at the Public Works Department. So to put all new equipment at the city barn, and I know I've shot y'all some prices, but he did lower it some, is $5,054. That's to redo everything. At Menard Park is $11,587. So, I mean, it's y'all's decision what you want to do with that. I think it's important we have them both places.
Chief, what were those 2 prices again? I know you sent over the updated ones.
The city barn's $5,054.88. Menard Park is $11,587.59.
I don't recall what we had in maintenance budget for the public works.
Well, on Menard Park, I suggest we use that Menard Park money.
Yeah.
Being that the tractor is sometimes stored at the city barn, which is somewhat a piece of Menard Park property.
Sure.
I don't see why we couldn't use the funds out of there also. So, how often do you store it over there?
Probably there, I would say probably 40% of the time maybe. The rest of the time it's in the blue barn at Menard Park.
I don't see a problem with the, is it something we can decide and vote on today, or
Not an agenda item.
no?
Okay, we can put it on the agenda then for December. Just be aware that those cameras are, 90% of them are up and working at either place.
So how often do we do a check on those cameras?
I can't sit there and monitor cameras all day.
No, I'm just
So
asking as far as a service, as far as if they're operational, I mean.
I'll pull them up periodically and they'll come up, but here lately they have been glitchy. They'll go down. And in this case, the DVR was totally burned up at Public Works. I got a feeling the same thing is happening over there at Menard Park. And the new equipment now will notify you if there's a problem.
Right.
If you have a problem with the DVR or any cameras. The new equipment, you can set it for people, vehicles, and get alerts off that. So it's much better equipment.
Yeah, I can even set it on thermal. I
Right,
think.
right.
So if my math's right, it comes out to $16,643.47. Both of them.
I didn't add them up, but sounds good. So we'll put it on the agenda then in December. Real property, the valuation came back on that property that the city was interested in it. So how do you want me to proceed on that? The owner's calling, asking, what do you want to do?
Can we have a meeting on that at the end of this?
We can go on executive session anytime.
Yes. I mean, I don't know if you want to move the executive session to
Toward
later in
the
the
end.
agenda.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Let's do that.
Okay.
We'll get a lot of the other stuff taken off behind us, so when we go to executive sessions.
Yeah.
All right.
Any questions or?
All right, thank you, sir. Thanks, Chief. Municipal Court, monthly report.
Good evening. For the October 2024 activity, total citations filed, it's 221. Total cases disposed, 187. 46 disposed cases signed up for the driver safety course, and 21 of those cases signed up for the deferred disposition. Total collected for the city was $43,832.71, which the state portion kept $20,983.92, and the city's portion of that was $22,848.79. No big update so far. We have been working with the judge to modify the fines amounts. Hopefully get that rolling in by starting at the beginning of the year.
Great.
So do we have any, a large number of outstanding non-payments of
Sorry?
fines, any non-payments of fines,
No.
backlog?
Not that we're aware of. Just the
Right.
typical, people with collections and
Right.
Right. Any other questions? Thank you so much, appreciate it. Number 8, financial review. Review and act on monthly report and payment of bills. Have we gotten any more money from the county and state? Came in much?
$1,100.
Ma'am?
$1,100. It's a slow process there. But when it comes hard, so it's waiting.
Did our increases go into effect October 1st that we've talked about in our budget
The water bill, it'll be on this month's bill.
this month?
This month, this month.
Okay.
Wondering if, maybe after January, not, or February, that we could do a sanity check against the actual budget. I mean, we look at this, but the way we normally do our budget report, with where we're at.
quarterly or every 6 months, probably is wise.
Yeah, so I'm wondering what date would you think would be good for them?
Whatever y'all decide on.
Quarterly would be what?
Quarterly.
So we do it, start it in January?
So you just mean placing it on the budget
Like we
sheet,
normally
right?
do our budget sheet, so we can
Okay.
see where we're at. I mean, this is here, but it's very difficult for someone,
Sure.
non-finance person to look at it. And, I think that budget sheet really spells it out along with our normal reports, because this is showing real cash, so.
So we can do it like January meeting, because that would be the end of December. And then April meeting, because that's the end of March. So the month after that quarter, when the
Yes.
quarter ends up following month.
Yes.
I would like to propose doing that, if that's okay with Michelle.
If y'all want to do it that way.
Plan on that January then.
Just remind me.
Yeah. We'll add it to the agenda for January.
Right?
No action on number 8. No motion to pay the bills.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Alderman Houston, second by Alderman Mark. All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Number 9, action on follow-up items. A is the MIT grant. In the packet was the email that was sent to us for both the stormwater and sanitation sewer. On the stormwater, Royce and I met with Mr. Wyson before the meeting, and over in the area, Bower Street and that area, the first ditch work that was done was a little aggressive. So we visited with the engineer, and he's went back and looked for the rest of the town. They've gone out and looked and made alterations to the plan to minimal work, minimal dirt to be removed. Some of the ditches that were deeper that did not meet the 3-to-1, the revised plan, and he did a verbal, but he put it on the map, is he's gonna put a pipe in with drainage, put a pipe in and fill it in so it's not as steep. There was a couple driveways that pipe had been taken out, and they put in a V-type drainage, if you will. And we didn't like how that was done, so he's going back and changing that to where it's straighter across, more like what the driveway was before. They've replaced, by this report, they've replaced 1,084 linear feet of the 6-inch. They've replaced 366 linear feet of 8-inch, and this is the pipe bursting. Replaced 1,468 feet of 10-inch. Replaced 300 feet of 12-inch. They've installed 2 cleanouts. Project is 25% complete by total work billed on invoice 3. At the beginning, there was a problem with the contractor getting paid for that first lump of work. And what had happened, somebody had mentioned all the pipe that was over here delivered on Columbus Street. Well, the contractors doing the work ordered enough pipe for our project plus another city, but they had it all dropped at our city spot over here, which is no big deal. But when they invoiced it to the Galveston council, etc., the person that gave the paperwork just immediately gave that whole invoice for all the pipe. Well, it was caught saying, wait, there's more pipe here for the city of Wallis than what was on scope. And they said, oh, crud. So they had to go back and change the invoice, and it added the time to which they got paid because of their mistake. So if y'all heard rumblings that we weren't paying them, it wasn't us. It was the state, and it was somebody on their team that made the mistake by sending in the wrong invoice. And coincidentally, about the time they were going to get paid for that first invoice, it was real quick. I'd called the state, and they have like 3 levels at the state level that approves. First or second level had already been approved for the second payment. So they were about to get paid for the first section and the second section right there. But there were some, of course, there was people at their company wanting to get paid, but when I called the state and I found out why they weren't getting paid, then anyway, it made sense. And so we are working with not being as invasive on some of this future ditch cleaning than what originally started off.
So Mayor, on these talks, is this affecting the deadlines or change orders?
Not as of right now. And he's working the change orders with what he presented tonight. He's going to be in touch with the GLO to see what he has to do.
Yeah, and so we're still on schedule as far as you know?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, I talked to the engineer myself, and the way I understand it, he decided that he was gonna have to re-engineer everything. And what I understood him to say was there was a lot of things, work that was supposed to be done is not gonna be done anymore. They're not gonna clean some of the ditches out because, for whatever reason. And I stated to him that there isn't a ditch here in town that doesn't need to be cleaned out to the bottom level of the culverts that are already there. And I have a problem with the council not knowing exactly what's going on. Would you like to comment on it, or I mean, you are meeting with them, but we don't know what the hell is going on.
No, we can change that. Which one of y'all would like to be the focal point visiting with engineer? Because somebody needs to be the focal point, so. I had volunteered originally, but I don't have to do it. There's no problem with that, sir.
What, do you have a problem with letting us know what is going on?
Not at all.
Well,
What do you want, like an email, just an update when we talk?
yeah,
Okay.
I guess so, yeah.
Is that okay with y'all?
And I don't wanna go back to,
Let you keep staying going.
Okay.
I wanna go back to the fact that he's saying they're not gonna clean out a lot of these ditches, and they need to be cleaned out, but they need to be cleaned out to the level of the conduit or the drive that's there, instead of just skip them.
Yeah, I don't, with meeting with him, he had never told me that they were never going to clean out to the bottom of the culverts that were there.
Okay.
But I will follow up with him on that, because that was common sense, is to do that. And then additionally, if new culverts got to be put in, to clean out to the bottom of the new culverts that's there.
Well, I can't disagree with you on that.
Yes.
It needs to be done.
But initially, weren't they going below the existing culverts, and now it was going way below it, and then, oh, we dug this deep, now we got to put new culverts in?
Well, because when an engineer designs any project, they're going to do it by the warranties of the pipe and all their protocols. So the pipes that they were using for the warranty required 1 foot coverage. Well, all throughout our town, the way it was laid out, sometimes with the width of the street, the driveway, the yards, when you get a pipe that right now there's 0 dirt over it, and they have to put a foot, well, that automatically lowers the pipe a foot. Well, then, when you try to do a 3-to-1 so people can mow, well, the pipes are close to the street. The street steadily had some asphalt put on it, so now you're gonna have quite a steep ditch to the ditch between the street and the culvert. And then the property owner says, well, they don't want any more dirt taken off of their property, so you gotta stay within the city right of way. So yeah, then that makes it steep. So what's happened before is when they did that for design, now they gotta go back and put, well, I'm communicating to the citizens as well, not just you.
Which, I mean, we can sit here and argue all day with engineers, but their 1 foot coverage is just asinine.
But that's why I told him that we discussed it, and to do, he's going back and putting metal and changing the drawings to where don't have to do that 1 foot, so that these culverts don't have to be placed so deep. Therefore, we don't get into the steep ditches like down Guyler and all throughout town in the first project.
The bottom line is, he was told numerous times not to dig these ditches out like he did the time before, and he didn't follow any of our instructions and didn't care. He just went ahead and started doing it until I went out there and stopped him. And he shouldn't have done it. If he had a problem with what he was doing, he should have come and told us and get an okay instead of just going ahead and doing it.
Well, he presented the plans to the city, and none of us nor the citizens, to my knowledge, brought it to my knowledge. We've had them on display, and so when an engineering firm presents to the city and we don't have people on staff, or I don't take the time personally to look at them and go out there, I'm part of the blame, but all of us are part of the blame.
We're all
blamed. None of us spoke up, so it's hard to sit here and say the engineer is 100% at fault. So,
Well, and I mean, if the guy said he wasn't gonna dig the ditches, you should have told him to come to tell us, the city council, what he was gonna do.
after they started the project per design, we got involved because of
No,
what
I'm
was-
saying the comment about David said the guy said he wasn't gonna clean up any more ditches.
Yes, sir.
Another thing I want to know is where have they been for 3 weeks?
Part of it is they stopped so that they could redo it and not be so invasive per their initial plan.
Which was our request.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it was. I mean, there was a whole lot of stuff they could have been doing while they were figuring out which ditches they couldn't cut. There's a whole lot that, I mean, they could have been cleaning out all the ditches along the way.
Well, they've got I don't know about that, sir, because the contract company has to do what's on paper. So when we step in and say, we don't like what y'all's doing, we don't like what's on paper, please come back with another plan. The contractors cannot go and just start doing stuff with not what's on there's a process that has to be followed. And so with all their workload, we stopped them. So, and we're not paying for them for that to be there. We're only paying for them to do what they're doing. But instead of them continuing on, and then we have the issue like the first project, we stopped them. So they had to have time for all their other work to redo the drawings. Now, do I wish they would have done all the drawings more correct the first time? Of course, we all do. Any more questions? I will follow up with more emails. That's a good suggestion. Downtown revitalization project update.
We are still waiting for the last part of it, which is the lights. They're supposed to be here by Friday. They've been delaying because of one part they're waiting for from a supplier. So hopefully Friday, if not, I mean, if they come in on Friday, it's not gonna get installed on Friday. So it'll be hopefully sometime next week, and then we'll be all done. We can do our walkthroughs and everybody, bless what they've done.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I mentioned to you at one of the other meetings about reconsidering putting straight in parking instead of angle parking on First Street there between the two, have you considered any of that?
We are in a standstill as far as parking. The loan company has come back with only $200,000 that they'll loan the EDC versus the $500,000 that we asked for. So we're having to revisit what we can and cannot do. So it hasn't come up because we haven't even gotten to that point. But I will keep that on our agenda to address with the engineer when we do that.
But that's not part of this grant, so.
No, yeah, I mean, that's
Except for the
totally off of
handicap,
this
yeah.
grant. It's not any grant at all, so. But if we were able to get this street grant have the pre-application for, then that might help be able to get the parking out of the money the EDC wants to do, so.
9C, grant pre-application update.
As y'all were aware, we had less than a 3-week window really to get this pre-application done. Al was great on getting on top of the project and getting the LMIs and our CFIs, the regulations that we'll have to operate under.
Okay.
And I was also able to work with the grant expert that helped us kind of understand some of that, what is important and what's not on this. As I gave y'all, sorry, it didn't print real well because this is off of their program, GLO's program. Unfortunately, they weren't clear that in order to even save anything, you have to submit it. So I got to redo it again very early this morning. But basically, this is just to show you, what the form is about, what we have to provide them. That sheet that's very hard to read is who the contact people are. So initially, we have, me since I'm submitting it, and then the mayor, Sheila, the mayor, I think are the only, and then I think David's in there as the, no, I'm sorry, he's not. It's just the mayor. The way they do it is who's your city employee, who's your chief elected officer, and then who's the contact person, and who's the grant person. But we can't have a grant person right now because anybody who officially assists cannot apply to be our grant administrator. So obviously no engineer and no grant writer are going to do it officially until we go out for RFQs and RFPs. And we did not do that as we had planned on doing from the last meeting because of talking to the grant expert, and Sheila and I talking to the things that we need for the request for proposal for the grant writer, we weren't going to be able to put forward yet, and we don't. It was anticipated we would do it in December once we have more time and more effort, because then the effort on this, because February 3rd is when they will come back to the people who they have agreed to let apply for the grant. And then we have 2 months to submit the grant, which is pretty hard to do with 2 grants. And as y'all will see as we go through the numbers, one of them's almost $20 million. That's our streets. So we are anticipating.
How much streets?
Yes,
Or do we have a rough number?
it's in here. Oh, we'll go through it.
Okay.
So because it's a very short period of time and we're working 2 grants, we anticipate having to work in advance, hope that the grant person and the engineer that is selected is willing to run the risk with us that we will get approved to go forward with the grant. So, and then in April 3rd, the grant's submitted, and I think in June, they'll let you know whether we got the grant. And then from that moment that we sign the contract, it's 2 years, so that no extension, you gotta have it done in 2 years. So that's part of the commitment. You'll see at the very end of this, there's acknowledgements that that the city is committed to, and that's why I've put it in here, that you acknowledge that you have a deadline, that there's some of the basic ones, but the deadline one is one of their big ones. They say it twice, I think. So that you go through the proper regulations, the government, federal regulations in acquisition and stuff.
I'm new to this stuff. What happens if you don't meet the deadline?
Whatever takes place after that, it comes out of city pocket. So
we just quit. We just quit when.
And you just quit.
Okay.
Exactly.
No money.
Whatever you spent to that point, but there will be. They haven't addressed exactly what the punitive side of it will be. I don't think it'll be financially punitive, but it will be a challenge. It goes as an X mark against future federal GLO grants, because they've been very, very clear on that. I have spoken, Royce spent a lot of time helping me with this. I've spoken with Royce, 3 engineers, making sure of who thinks whether we can get these 2 projects done in 24 months. One said yes, the other one said, we're pushing it, and the third one said, probably. So the street one is going to be the simplest one, because the engineering drawings on that is pretty basic. All we're doing is taking up the streets and putting them right back down where they were. The engineering, the environmental should be fairly easy on that as well. We will have to do environmental, but it will be less of a project, of a in-depth environmental, because we're just going right back in the existing footprint. That footprint's already been disturbed anyway. So the water and the streets will take the longest. So the good news is the engineering can be done quicker, and they'll be working on, and we can have 2 different engineers for each project too, if it becomes necessary to get the projects done. But the water can be working obviously at the same time that the street is, but the street's going to take the longest to do. So the engineering is quicker and the environmental is quicker. So we should be there, but obviously before we submit the final grant, if we're invited to do it in April, we have to have a much better understanding of whether we're going to be doing all of this. We obviously have the ability to back off on some of it before we submit the grant.
Who acquired the engineer?
The city. We put out an RFQ initially, and request for qualifications, and then for the grant underwriter or grant writer administrator, that would be a request for a proposal. So we have to have the documents that they're going to be putting their proposal to.
So in figuring this out, and of course I know Royce helped out with some of this, y'all kind of figured out how many streets, what pipe would benefit and so forth, right?
Right. Royce did a list so like this is the street one. So it tells us how many square yards and which streets they are. And so we go all the way down. There was a section of whether it just needed overlay or the total street be torn up. Based upon the cost that we have, it doesn't look like we could do the overlay streets anyway. And according to GLO, overlay is considered a maintenance, and they don't pay for maintenance. So we wouldn't have been able to do it unless we kind of fudged anyway. So, but we have, and then he did the same for the water. And I have maps. That's the one thing I forgot to add in here was the maps. But he did maps with all the lines, color-coded, what we're doing, what streets, what pipes needed to be changed from 2 to 6. He did use the 2024 planning book, and there are several items in there that are not accurate or up to date, even though they just gave it to us. So we'll be coordinating getting that updated properly in the 2024 book. So
I guess for this stage, this is just the pre-application, correct?
Right.
And then if we look like we get invited to actually submit, then that's when we'll need to have a conversation about the 10% match.
Right. You can not do a match. You lose those points, and as competitive, I'm being told as competitive as this bid is right now, we will not be considered. If we're not going to be, our points won't make it.
So we'll, hopefully we can at least get invited and then talk about that.
Right. Also, y'all may know that the, our low to moderate income level is above 51%, and we have almost a 21% that are in poverty in our town. So that does help us, give us the disadvantaged funds and a little oomph to get us over that hump. On the water grant in here, you'll see some handwritten notes. After talking to the expert, I had switched some percentages around that I thought went before versus after. So that's why there's some changes on that. If you look at your very last page, it will tell you how many square feet of road, how many linear feet of pipe. We have in there the looped pipes are the ones that won't require any acquisition that we're aware of. They're something that the city will be able to do without having to do it. Now and because acquisition is difficult, and having that two-year window, unless the council disagrees, I would think we leave that side alone and just do the loops that we know we can handle easily on our own,
Especially with the timeline.
Right, exactly. I mean, they will fund the money for the acquisition, but we've learned that story, I think, already. And then there's approximately 12 new fire hydrants that need to be placed in town to cover the area, to make sure the entire city has the requirements of, 500 feet from a fire hydrant? Because right now we are short on fire hydrants in our community. These numbers are heavily padded because we didn't have time to get down and dirty. And like, you don't know what you're going to hit when you're digging up the water lines. Our environmental, I put in 5%. It probably won't even be, it will be 3% of the cost. The pipe costs, right now, we're being told it'd be $45 a linear foot installed. But that isn't, I don't think that covers repaving streets over, if they have to cut through a street, it's not going to cover that. So the numbers are hefty, but when we get it refined, I think we'll find it to be a lower number. But it's better to ask for more and then come back saying we don't need that much, because when we do our final application, there's no consequences to doing it that way. The additional fees on here, there's a required 15% engineering fee, and that's the 15% of the actual construction cost. So that's the pipe cost and the installation of that. Then you add your 5% environmental study, and on the water, I put in a 25% contingency. So we're really heavily loaded on this water until we get it more defined. And then there's an 8% grant administration fee over everything prior to that. So over the contingency, the 5% and the 15%. And then our 10% match. So the total grant for the replacing the water lines, and I think we pretty well got everything that needs to convert from 2 to 6 inches in town. So that will assist us in our pressure issues that we have, right, Royce? By enlarging them to 6 versus the 2.
Well, it's not gonna hurt.
Yeah.
Well, it will, because you're gonna have more volume, which
Right.
in turn will increase more pressure.
Right.
But yeah, there's other things, but the
That's
main
it.
thing is getting rid of this old 2-inch pipe that's in the
Right.
ground. That's been there since the mid to late 50s.
And the justification for all this, we have to justify which storms, and if you'll notice in this grant, we were allocated, our area was allowed up to, there were 5 or 6 different storms we could apply ourselves to and say that storm is part of the reason why we have the challenges. our foundation for the water is every time we have water coming in, shifting the droughts, everything that happens back and forth with these old cast iron pipes, it starts disintegrating them and causes them to crack. And the definition, one of the explanations by GLO was that each one of these storms, if at the end of that storm you didn't fix that problem, then it's continuing, that will probably continue through each storm that you get.
Right.
So there's continuous erosion and they want to help us stop it. So we're right on the money for what they are expecting to happen in the city. When we get to the streets, there's about 95,756 square yards of street. That's not all that we have, but those are the worst ones. And we also have a list of all of those as well that Royce put together. We're running at $125 a square yard. Probably a little bit high, but that was what was recommended from two of the engineers. So we decided to go with that number. That, just doing that many square yards at 125 per square yard, it's $11,969,500. Then you have your 15% engineering fee, 5% environmental study, and we lowered it to 15% contingency fee because otherwise we would have been over the $20 million ceiling that they required. And then you have your 8% grant administration fee, which is $1.3 million. So that came out to $17,950,839, and you add our 10% match, it's $19,745,923. So we're just under that $20 million mark. Like, once again, I think these numbers are going to get refined, and most likely lower than where we are. If the city doesn't want to do as many streets and they want to lower their cost of match, then obviously that can be done when we be thought of between now and February. So we're ready if we get invited to do the grant in February. It is still the only street infrastructure grant that I've seen in 7 years for our region. And there's no conversation of them coming down the pike anytime soon, especially with the change of the force in Washington. I mean, this money is happening just because there was leftover funds from all the other grants since Ike and Molly in 2008, and they had to use all this up in 2 years. That's why the deadline is, or HUD takes it back. And all indications right now is future infrastructure funds for small rural communities most likely will not be available. So, and a lot of it's being reallocated to the places that have the huge storms this year as well. So, any questions so far? I mean, if it's okay, we'll submit it, and no obligation to the city at this point. Hopefully, I mean, if y'all are okay, we'll go forth with the RFQ and RFP. That will cost the posting of in the newspaper of the request, and then the time to go through it. But everybody I've talked to doing these grants have said we really need to have those guys lined up and beginning to work on it in their head before February 3rd.
Are you suggesting that ahead of this pre-application or after?
After, I mean, because tomorrow's when it's due. So
well, I know, I'm just making
we
sure
were
I
going to
understand
do
the timeline.
We were going to do it before we submitted. We weren't going to have anybody signed up, but we were going to do it before, and it was just wasn't necessary. So we were holding off. But I think starting sometime in December, get it posted, review them in January would probably be a logical step, just to be prepared, because 2 months is really pushing it to get the details. But the good news is everything we're doing is already existing. So we're not having to reinvent the wheel like we have on some of the other grants we have. Okay, any questions?
No, do you just need to know if we need to go ahead?
Yeah. I mean, I think y'all kind of agreed that last time, that
Yeah, we did.
you wanted to see the numbers.
To get
so
the pre-application done.
Yeah. So, but I figured if you didn't want me to submit it, let me know now.
See what they say. Do it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Royce, too, for that. And say Al, figured it too. I know that they put in
Yes.
a lot of work.
Yes, they did. And Roy's particularly, so have to have fun with each other, so. And not that kind of fun, Mark. Okay.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you. Back to 9A. This is when we asked Mr. Wyson to revisit that section of town and come up with some alterations, not to be so invasive. This is what he suggested. So here's the print for that. Sorry, I didn't bring that up when we were on 9A.
Mayor, while we're on line A, you asked if anybody wanted to volunteer to be the contact person. If you don't want to be, I will.
It's not that I don't want to be, but that's fine.
Okay. Well. All right, well, we'll leave it with you then.
No, I'm saying it's not that I want to be, but it's good that you're volunteering.
Okay.
I'll let you do it.
All right, fine.
9D, water well number 1, grant update. I know we talked about the project, but when we say grant update, is that pretty much what the update that you talked
I would
about?
imagine.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. 9E, FEMA update. I'm assuming that's with the update on payment for the debris. I have been in contact. When we left here, I was gonna follow up with Chip, from the last meeting. I ended up getting in touch with the regional, well, no, let me go back. I've been in contact with State Representative Stan Kitzman's office, a guy named Nathaniel. Followed up with him, and he then had the TCEQ person, the regional person, call me last week. She said that Austin County had submitted for a permit for that site, but then had pulled their permit. So I said, well, what's the next step? A lot of the debris is still there at that site. It hadn't been burned. She said, well, get it resubmitted and we'll take a look. So I forwarded that permit to, which they had already had it, but I sent that email then to Mr. Chip Reed, told him what I was told by Regina or Katrina with TCQ, and requested by email that he fill it out, and then he called me and said that he would resubmit that on behalf of Austin County to get a temporary burn permit for that debris. So we will see what issues, why they pulled it, I don't know. I don't know the specifics, but while we're in contact, so that's where we stand right now. And she said that they have done a post. There was a little bit, somebody evidently burned a little bit of it. And so they have done post permits for that little bit that was burned, and then a permit for what still is on site to burn. So that's where we stand with permit with TCQ.
So Mayor,
So the
is there?
FEMA, one second, one other.
I'm sorry.
No, the FEMA form, even Stan Kitzman's office told us, do not tell FEMA to close that account, because once they close it, they can't reopen it. So we've been advised, do not, and that takes my approval as mayor, to close that account to get reimbursement. So as of right now, we are not closing that FEMA account till we work through this permit to burn and et cetera.
So, from the state level, I don't know, does the fact that there was a disaster declaration declared trump anything?
Yes. And Nathaniel knows that. I can't correctly recall the regional director for TCQ. I reminded her, she's aware of it. And so we will see.
Good.
And then is that, the payment of the debris, is that, no, that's not new business. So we still need to address that. And Mr. Mullins, from the last meeting, I had an action item to contact Mr. Mullins. Him and I had a meeting, and I requested that he be here tonight. So Mr. Mullins, if you will, come up and the agreement was up front was we paid you the original amount. And there was some confusion. You didn't receive the permission to continue, but in good faith, because of the disaster that was declared, because it was unsafe, he continued on. Now, Royce did get a text from you with the current load count. Royce, and I told you all at the last meeting, I faintly remembered, Royce, and it was during harvest. We had lots of breakdowns. My fault was I did not follow up in an email or text back to Royce. But I do recall telling Royce, we've got to continue with it seemingly with the safety condition we had. Royce thought that he communicated. Mr. Mullins doesn't recall getting a communication from neither Royce nor I. So Mr. Mullins continued on. So now what we have is the challenge of what I'm gonna say around 30,000 versus the 70 plus.
65.
Okay.
65 and some change. I sent through an email, I don't know if you received it. Oh, no. Well, I sent you an email with a revised proposal, a compromise, if you will.
As of, when did you send it, the other day?
The other day, Wednesday, whatever the deadline for getting information submitted, Wednesday, maybe it was.
What may have happened is we'll have to go back, you may have missed on a character or something.
I sent it to Mayor Wallis, Mayor, or whatever the
Yes.
mayor.
So what we'll do is with what your verbal is, then we'll follow it up with getting that email.
Okay. Well, what I did is in light of all the missteps, and I can point out the missteps if we need to go down that road, but there was a lot of missteps along this way that got us where we're at. But in light of all of that, my proposal was this, that the 90 loads were to be paid at the original agreed price. There was an overage of 109 loads. I took a 25% discount off of that price, and I don't remember what the math was, 25,000 or some odd dollars. It's like an $8,900 discount, but would agree to accept payment on the 109 loads at my cost for removing those. They had to be removed. And again, we can go into some detail about what should have happened, what could have happened, what didn't happen. That's all beside the point. The fact is that it's gone, and it's after the fact. And I feel like I'm being more than fair at standing here and saying, okay, here it is. You know, the base contract was assumed to be this, which can be argued, but there is an overage, and it had to be gotten rid of. I wasn't told to stop. Nobody inquired about, well, is this a not to exceed contract? There was just no communication, period. So the bottom line is,
One correction is there were a lot of communication back and forth.
Right, between Royce and I.
So we have text messages. So
Yes.
what I don't want the citizens or council to think that there was zero communication. When you say zero communication, it was on the part of
The lack of communication was from the initial award through the process of getting started. There was no contract issued, which took away an opportunity to discuss details, questions, so forth and so on. There was no pre-construction meeting on, hey, this is where we're going to start. I took it upon myself to come to City Hall and ask about a contract. I was told, we got it in the minutes, you don't need a contract. Well, right there, that took away one step of detail. I went to Royce. Royce called me, hey, you were awarded the contract. I went to Royce and said, where do you want me to start? Okay. Well, he said, well, the engineer, the GLO project is starting here, so we want to get ahead of them. That was the bulk of our pre-construction meeting. There was no discussion. I don't know if he was told that maybe it was assumed this was a not to exceed contract. It didn't say that in the letter proposal. Okay, the letter proposal says estimate. So if there was a concern about the quantity or the value of the contract, it could have been addressed multiple times.
The other that didn't point out a red flag was that, if I recall, the other two estimates were fairly in line. So with what
They
Mr.
were.
Mullins had turned in. So my thinking was, if he had turned in this amount and the other two were been later, I can see us being more concerned about, what's the difference there? So,
But anyway, in light of those missteps, the best deal I can throw out here is, hey, I'll eat the profit on the overage. I understand how we got here. I really do, and I don't like it any more than y'all do. But that's my offer.
Okay.
And whatever the math works out, I don't
Yes.
recall the exact number. But if you don't find
25% off.
25% off of 330, it made it like $254 and some change, I think, per load.
Are you willing, if council agrees on that amount, are you willing for us to do, as money comes in, a payment? Because right now, we're very limited on the money coming in from our tax base.
Yes, sir.
If they agree on that amount, will you agree to some type of payment?
I will.
Okay.
I will. And I understand you're working on some reimbursement and all that stuff. I don't want it to end up ugly.
We appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Well, let us, now,
If you don't find that email, let me know and I'll resend it.
I look at, we're gonna need to look at exactly the characters you
Okay.
used, because in my swiping left on trash, I either swipe left and accidentally deleted it,
Sure.
or I didn't get it. So,
Right. Okay. All right. Very good. Just let me know.
yeah.
Thank you.
So basically what he's saying is, from that 70-something thousand, he's gonna take 25% off of 30 minus 69. That's what his proposal is.
65, minus 30, 35.
Yeah, it did 25% discount
35,000.
on $35,000.
Yeah.
8750.
Rough numbers.
So, Mr. Mayor, if correct me if I misunderstood, but through the discussion, I believe that you may have said that through all of this, and, you were busy and everything else, that you believe that you did tell Royce to go ahead and go with it.
Yes, sir.
So there was confirmation from you and representing the council in a way to proceed, and I'm assuming then Royce
thought that he had communicated to Mr. Mullins. Mr. Mullins looked at his text, never received that. At this same time, Royce had a death in the family, so he too was underneath a lot of stress. So I can see where Royce thought and had intended to text or follow up, but very well may not have, and evidently didn't, because Mr. Mullins didn't receive it. So
Well, let's go back to us. We didn't do exact due diligence either at the beginning. And I do think the job was done and done well. There was a lot of missteps, as Mr. Mullins has stated. So to me, I think what he's brought to the table in good faith here is something we should consider to accept it, because I think it's a fair to at least pay for the job done, and we gonna have to pay attention next time we do something. It was an emergency situation. I don't think anybody we were just trying to get it done, and then we went too quick.
the other thing is, if the other two contractors showed up at that same price and then they got through 90 out of 100,
Oh, it'd be
whatever,
worse.
then the same thing about stopping or not doing or having a call emergency meeting. very well could have came up as well. Well, it would have had to, because they weren't going to eat $35,000 worth of just doing work for us out of good nature on their part. It comes out to around 26,000 difference that from what we approved, that we would, if y'all approve, have to set up, make payments on.
I'd like to make a motion that we do that settlement,
Make it right.
make it right.
I'll second it. I believe that the contract that we made with this gentleman was a estimate. And it had nothing to, he didn't know the scope of that job. He saw what was in front of him that day, he came in here and looked at it. A lot of stuff happened after the day he looked at the job. A lot of folks dropped a bunch of other stuff out there that didn't have anything to do with what this man saw. I think he's being incredibly fair, and I think we should accept his offer.
That's second on my motion.
That's your second.
I agree with everything you said, and you're right about, everything is fair, did us a job. My only concern is that when the job went and pretty much almost doubled what the original bid, I mean, I know we were trying to get it out. If it was me doing it for a city or an individual, I would have waited till I've got a firm go ahead.
I agree.
If I'm gonna remodel your kitchen, and I quoted you $10,000 to remodel a kitchen, and once I got in there, it all became bigger or whatever, I wouldn't be remodeling the kitchen and then say, hey, $50,000 now. I would have said, hey, look, this is what it's gonna be. It was an estimate, it got it to more, but I totally agree that
What he said.
there was back and forth on both ends. I hate it that we keep on learning valuable lessons up here, but we do.
Well, as far as I'm, there's a lot of questionable things that went on, and I don't think we'll ever get to the bottom of it.
But having said that, there is a motion and a second, so.
And we have a motion by Alderman Hoffman, a second by Alderman Bourne. Any other questions?
Well, for the integrity of this council, I think it's the right thing to do.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
No.
So we got 3 over here, 4, 2 against. The ayes have it, the motion carries. New business. Discuss and act on agenda requests from Steve Reichert and John Bowen regarding a request for variance for the construction of 2 residential homes on plotted lots located at 5914 Geiger Street.
Hi, how are you doing? I've got a little PowerPoint if that's,
Yes.
that's fine.
That's right there at the sloop.
Yes, ma'am.
No, you're fine.
You're just fine.
I can't see it. Those eyes are about.
Sorry, and I do have some handouts for you guys as well.
We need to get some.
There's more information on the PowerPoint, but I took some of
Thank you,
it.
sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I appreciate your time today. My name is Steve Reichart. Our company is called J&S Construction Solutions. We've built several homes in the city of Wallis, over on Gresham Street, near First Street. We do construction that ranges from commercial, shopping centers to little small cottage homes like what we're talking about today. See if I can get this. My remote's not working, so I'm going to stand up here if that's okay, sir. Sure. Through there. Not a problem. So we are, and this is actually slightly off. My eyes aren't nearly as good as they used to be, but we're actually sitting on this block right there. These lots are on Geiler Street between 6th Street and 7th Street, or really the slough where 7th Street it ends into. They're platted lots, been platted since, I think the plat says 1880, but I can't really read it. It's kind of smeared, but I believe it's 1880. They are platted, as you can see, as 30-foot lots. So ideally, what we'd like to do is, we've got contract on the 6.5 lots that are there. They're labeled as track 2. We would like to initially request a variance for lot 14, or partial lot 14 and lot 15, which is a total of 50 feet. So that actually meets your normal subdivision guidelines for the size of the lot. It's 50 by 140, I believe. And then the other lot is lot 16. It is a 30-foot lot by 140. What we want to do on the 50-foot lot is a product that looks like that. That's actually one that we built over on Gresham Street. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It's a 1,221 square foot house with a single car garage. However, it's 39 feet wide. And so in order to make the lot or the house fit on the lot, we would need a 5-foot setback. Your normal subdivision guidelines call for a 10-foot side setback, but we would need a 5-foot setback in order to make that particular house fit on the lot. The original plat didn't call for any setbacks at all. I mean, it just doesn't, it's silent about any kind of side setbacks. So that's what we would like for you to consider. It meets all the other guidelines, that are established for it. There would not be a variance that we would need for the living space or anything like that. The only other potential issue, and we're not located in the floodplain. We're actually in Zone X for this particular lot right here. So ideally, we would do a 12-inch pad, about 10 truckloads of dirt, and then build our 12-inch forms on top of that, which would put us a little over 2 feet out of the floodplain. I've heard different things about whether we can bring fill in or not. I think I recall that we can on a lot that's not located in the floodplain. So just wanted to verify that. On the other lot, this would be what we are ultimately would like to build. I say planning, we would like to build this. This is one that we also built over on Gresham Street. It's a 1,080 square foot living space. It's actually a total of 1,200 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It's a cool little plan, and it fits well. It's 20 feet wide, so it fits really, really well on a 30-foot lot with 5-foot setbacks on either side. Your subdivision ordinance or guidelines, subdivision ordinance, I'll call it, requires 50 feet. This is actually a 30-foot lot. Of course, it was platted over 100 years ago. And so it doesn't meet the minimum lot size that's currently required in the subdivision ordinance. So there may be a little bit of a discrepancy there as to what's really allowed and what's not. So that's the question is does this have to follow the subdivision guidelines or not? So there was a little bit of confusion on that. If it doesn't, that's great news. So ideally, we request, a variance for the 5-foot setbacks on this one as well. And then that's kind of just roughly what it looks like. Your normal subdivision guidelines also require 1,200 square feet of, interior living space. This one's 1,080, so it falls a little bit short of that. So that we would require a variance for that, or maybe not.
Does anybody recall in the building? In the building and construction ordinances, what the minimum square foot?
I don't think there is a minimum other than what
There is in the
the government,
subdivision.
in the subdivision, but under what the standard governmental code has, I think that's what we're going by. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Okay.
I think we need to look at it because I don't know what we really have.
Yeah, your subdivision ordinance.
It's different.
103A, section 21, does require 1,200 for a subdivision.
Right.
Yes,
right.
And then there's the flood one, which is, I think,
Right.
210 or something with the FEMA requirement that, yeah.
And part of our
So-
town halls
I don't know about
before
this one.
3 months ago, we were having Monday night town halls open for everybody to review ordinances. And the building and construction ordinances have been gone through. And it's in the packet that I gave Ms. Sheila. It's gonna be an agenda item at the end for y'all to decide how y'all wanna start addressing ordinances that we reviewed. But I don't recall because we went through so many of them.
Yes,
So
sir.
what we would need to do is, even a setback, since it's not a, subdivision ordinance, unless somebody recalls, we may have to get back with you.
That's fine. That's no
I
problem.
actually, and I could be totally wrong, I want to say the standard setback is 5, and I could be wrong.
Royce, May, do you
I
recall?
don't think so. I think
On
it's
building?
10.
Royce?
Side
One
setback.
second, I can't take comments anymore from whomever I don't ask from, so, I mean, y'all can, excuse me, I would think y'all can, but there's a new rule that nobody can talk except council or whomever's presenting. So I'm asking Royce, do you recall?
I thought the side setback right now that on normal lot, not subdivision, was 10 foot.
10, okay. So what we'll need to do probably, I mean, I'll leave it up to council, we can say, since none of us know right away.
I understand. No problem. No, I do. I totally understand.
I'll have to lean on
Unfortunately, we're a
council.
small town and don't have a planning department to
No,
keep up with that
no
stuff.
problem at all. I completely understand. Ideally, and what we'd like to do, so we actually figured out, originally, it didn't appear that this lot was going to be in zone AE, and, within the floodplain. So I've actually kind of backed off of my variance request for this particular lot, although I would like to generally get your feel for whether, we've got potentially 6 lots that we can purchase in that block. One of them, is a 50-foot, combined 2 lots, one parcel and one full lot that, pretty much meets all of your requirements other than potentially, needing a 5-foot setback versus a 10. The other lot has a lot of differences to what you guys normally do. So I'm trying to gauge whether I should continue to push forward. I know you guys need affordable housing, good rental housing, to attract, teachers and that sort of thing, to the city. And so we'd love to go through and build these things. I just want to make sure before I go push forward, and I know you can't guarantee anything, but I wanted to get a temperature as to whether this is something that you guys look favorably upon and we should, continue to pursue it, and y'all would, at least consider it. Or if you're not, then I'd rather you just say, hey guys, we're not interested, move on and do something else. I'm cool with that too. So either way.
I think they're cute little houses. I would
Thank
love
you.
for them to do that. I'd love for them
Thank
to
you.
build
Okay.
houses here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Great. To make it work.
Cool. Thank you.
So you think we could maybe look at this and say something by next meeting? Is that too long for you?
No, that's fine.
Chief, you got a comment?
Well, no, I appreciate you coming up here and presenting that. In my opinion, that's great. I think it'll work out great. I don't think he's asking for too much. We need that type of housing, and to jump into another meeting, I don't see why that's necessary.
Okay. I'll make the motion that we consider this, at least talk about it and make a decision. All right. I'll move that
Do
we.
you have the
accept
whole
minutes.
track 2, or that,
I've got track 2 under contract. The gentleman, it's a friend of mine who bought actually track 1 and track 2, which is a total of 14 platted lots, but the back portion is, I think it's pretty much unbuildable. There's no road that actually ties into it. It's all off an alley. So we're not interested in buying those from him, but we've got the 6 right along Guyler Street at front on the road, contracted to purchase from him.
Can I ask you what the mean purchase price is?
Yes, ma'am. So we, for the houses, you mean, they're gonna be somewhere probably in the 230 to 250 range, something like that.
That's what they're running at.
About what they want?
And the bigger one will probably be 265 or 270, I think.
So you made this motion to go ahead
I did.
on both
I can't.
variances?
Sorry.
So lots 17, 18, 19, and 20, right now, that's not being considered.
I'm not asking for anything on those. Those start falling off pretty steep into the slough, so we've got to kind of get our plans together on. They're not in the slough, but they're well.
What I'm getting at is that also in your future projection that you would like to do? Or?
Yes, sir. We would hope to. Yes, sir.
There's a lot more work to that one, yeah.
Yes, so I'll have to figure out the elevation, the building pads, whether we build them on piers or with flood vents or what we do there. But the first 2, ideally, if you guys would approve the variances for the first 2 lots, that would be fantastic. If you don't want to do the second lot, that's fine. If you just want to do the 50-foot, I'd be great with that too. Or if you need to push it to the next meeting, I understand.
Did we have a motion to do it? Yep.
I just think the 5-foot variance, if that's all we're asking for, is the one lot and the 5-foot variance on that one lot to make it work within the
And the square
plans. And the square footage and everything. Yeah, I have no problem with giving you a variance on that, but that would be I'll make the first motion to give you the 5-foot variance on that.
Just remember, council, if it goes through, you're going to be setting a precedence. So just keep that in mind.
We are, yeah. But we also need housing, affordable housing in this town. This man as well as you come in, it looks like, I've seen his work. We have them over there in Broadway.
Well, I'm not debating.
Right.
And I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just saying, just remember, when future items come up, we have set a precedence. So.
That's a good point.
No, that's true, but, we take one at a time.
Councilman Maine, I completely understand what you're saying, but on this particular case, there's really not much else they could do with that.
I'm just stating,
Right.
we would be setting a precedence, so.
Well, I agree with you, we would, but the next meeting, when something like this comes up, we can set another precedent the other way.
Very much.
So you only do one or do you need all of it? Clarify that.
From what I understand, what she's saying is there's a motion to proceed with the plans that's presented.
Correct.
I'll second if it needs it.
Thanks, Dave.
Alderman Bourne gave the motion, Alderman Mark seconded. Any other questions or discussion?
Okay.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, the motion carries.
Thank you all very much. Can I ask, so do we get some kind of document that we would send to the permit people, or how does that work?
In the minutes.
The minutes?
Okay. I think,
When we
isn't
do
it?
the permitting, it'll be told to them.
It'll be told, okay, perfect. Thank you all very much for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
I'll close this up for y'all.
Thanks, sir.
10B, Millbrook variance request. Discuss and act on D.R. Horton's request for a variance on lots to allow for a 5-foot setback.
Yeah, go ahead. Y'all in trouble now.
You need me to pull that out of there?
That's the subdivision. That's the subdivision, that's different.
Yeah, I first want to apologize for my outburst a minute ago. I didn't mean to cause a ruckus.
No, sir.
No, I just,
Yes.
Used to, we had a very open,
Absolutely, just put it out there and I'll
but it's
Yes.
changed, so.
no, I totally.
You didn't know.
No.
Apology accepted.
Wet
But no
noodles,
apology needed.
wet noodles for me later. My name is Kyle Tollefson. I am representing D.R. Horton out of our Houston South office. My teammate here is Mr. Tommy Kim. And anyway, so as you all know, there is a subdivision that should start development here The developer has already had meetings with y'all, obtained approval, that type of thing. I've talked to Marty. I've met several of you at the 4th of July extravaganza, which I thoroughly enjoyed. My wife and I did, so that was very nice. But we wanted to just come in following up on Stephen's deal. There's approximately 99 homes. I only printed 3 of these because they're pretty thick, but hopefully he's going to get this set up here pretty quick. We too have some variance requests. There's actually 7 lots, and maybe y'all can share this until we get everything
Are you
up.
looking at just the oddball lots here? Is that my
I think
understanding?
in our packet, there was
Yeah.
some data that was
Okay.
included in our
Yeah.
packet.
Yes, so the ones that are highlighted in red, in your case, they're
Yes.
highlighted
Okay, I
in
have a
gray.
picture, yeah.
And so if you'll look at that packet, I believe there's 7 lots. Part of the reason there's a utility easement that is on the back side.
Yeah, which was in the original plan, I believe.
Right. And so with the 10-foot side setback requirements per the ordinance, that prohibits you building anything bigger than a 30-foot home, right? 30-foot wide home. And in this case, because you have the easement, then you have to reduce that footprint even more, right, on your width, unless you have a variance for those side setbacks. So what we're asking for here is on those 7 lots, we would like to get a 5-foot side setback variance on those 7. The plan is right now, the width of home that we have, and we'll get it pulled up here in just a second, and we'll show you all the homes that we intend to build. The smallest width is 28 feet, okay, up to 30 feet. So it's not a lot of room, but when you lose 5 to 10 feet due to a utility easement, we have to do something. So, Tommy, if you'll go back just a second to that very first page.
So I noticed too, one thing that's a benefit to consider this is the 4 lots on the cul-de-sac. There's nothing behind them but
The field.
easement.
Right.
Yes, so they're not right on top,
Correct.
except on one side.
Yes. So for us, the general process, just to try to educate y'all, because as things continue, y'all have talked about the traffic flow has increased. I actually live in Fulshear. We frequent Wallis quite a bit. My wife and I, we hit the Dollar General and a couple other places, and then we go back home because it's better than going to Katy. And I'm serious about that. Marty can attest to it. But anyway, there's going to be, I have a feeling, more growth in the city. And, y'all talked about setting precedents a second ago and that type of thing. And, you have to be very cognizant of that fact, obviously. But in this particular case, this plat's already been approved. And we, as the builder, don't have a lot of options. Part of our process, due diligence process, is doing the lot fit, which is what y'all were looking at a minute ago. Those detailed that says this is the maximum pad we can fit on this home, or maximum home we can fit on this pad. And so that's why we're coming to you guys now to get out in front of this before the development even starts.
So what's the square footage of that, on those particular lots will be?
As far as the home goes, what's the square footage of the homes?
Right.
So we'll go into that, and hopefully we'll answer your question. Just kind of cruise on through those, Tommy. So this is one of our X30 plans. If you look in the top right corner, it says Amber X30A. Everything's over 1,200 feet. We try to, we've looked at your city ordinance and made sure that we're doing that. One of the things that I'd mentioned to Marty, because we met, several months ago, is, this is the first kind of big subdivision y'all have had really ever or in a long time. And we want to make sure we do it right. We don't want to come in and just tick off the residents, the council members, and everybody around. That's just not a good look. And, one of the pieces of feedback that we got was we don't want a house with a whole bunch of garage right in the front. Well, what's the first thing you see? We could have lightened the color up on the garage door to make it white so you couldn't see it as well, maybe, but that's the 30 plan. And you're talking 18 to 20 feet wide on the garage, 2-car garage. That leaves you only 10 feet left for your door and the window. So again, most of these, go ahead, 3-bedroom. We won't go through the floor plan, but to give you an idea, here's another plan that's a 30-foot plan. Go ahead. There's another one. This one, the actual door is on the side of the house. And then there's a 2-story plan. And then this is what we call our cottage series, similar to what Stephen was talking about earlier, the 1-car garage. We have a 0-car garage. I was told by Marty if we try to build that, she might, I don't know, hit me upside the head. But I think most people will want a garage. I know some people may not, but we intend to build at least 1-car garage. So
What's your percentage you think on that? Because I like the 2-car garage. One problem I see with the single type, cars end up on the street.
They do.
And that's one thing with as many houses as going in. I don't want one of those situations where we've got a row of cars parked down the street and you can't get a fire truck down, or you can't get, it's just, becomes a jumble of cars.
Right, and I totally understand and hear and agree with what you're saying. So
I like the two ones for sure, but I understand there's going to be some lots that this would be better.
Right, and so to answer your question from a minute ago, if I may call you Jimmy, this cottage home would be on these 7 lots for sure. Okay. There's probably a couple other lots to where there's restrictions on the depth, where we may end up having to do that, put one of these other ones, but the majority of them would be a 2-car garage.
And then those that you're talking about, most of them are on this cul-de-sac, so that's not as bad.
Right. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So if you want to we'll go through a couple more. So we have 7 plans in total. Most all of them are going to be, hardy. I think very similar to what he brought up, depending on, what people want and kind of how things go, the mix of 2-story versus 1-story. There's only two 2-story plans in this particular deal, but, we've had subdivisions where people want 75% of the community is 2-story because that's what they need. They have 3 kids, 4 kids, whatever. They want a lot of space. Plus it kind of shrinks the width of the house. Not in this case the width, but more the depth. Okay. So anyway, wanted to show y'all all of this. The intent is to do hardy siding, which is a cementous board on the outside of the home. It's long lasting, good upkeep. We wanted to stick with the elevations that have some of the gables. We have built other communities where we put a very modern product in a small town, and that did not go over real well. So you learn your lesson quick on that. Some of it looks pretty good. Some of it, not so much. But we all have different tastes. So anyway, so the request is the variance of 5 feet for those 7 lots. And then also just to kind of give you all an idea. One thing on the streets. So more than likely, per the plat, there will be a 28-foot wide street, which is typically wider than what I've driven on in the city of Wallis. And it will be curb and gutter, which is another, difference, from what's currently here. So I think you still will have the problem if a lot of people park in the street.
Of course.
You will.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to have a little more room to move, so to speak.
It'll minimize things. I think that, like he said, two-car garage and a drive, I mean, it's not a huge driveway.
Right. So you're talking 18, probably 18 feet on the 2-car, 20 feet, something like that on width.
So
What's the estimated, one-car garage? How many do you estimate to be out there out of the 99 to 100 homes?
Yeah, so
It's seven.
definitely seven. And we actually weren't planning on building too many of the 1-car up front, sorry. We weren't planning on building too many of the 1-car until we got through our lot fit due diligence and said, oh, wow, we're gonna have to do this. And so my guess is, and I can't tell you straight off right now, but it would probably be less than 20%.
So what is the average lot size in this whole thing?
So per the ordinance, the lots have to be 50 by 120 feet deep in any new subdivision. Well, they have to be 50 by 120. There's a 25-foot setback unless you're on a cul-de-sac. If you're on a cul-de-sac, it's a 20-foot setback from the front. Then depending on what happens, and you'll see in the different colors on that map there, and on some of the others, there's easements that run. So most of the time you have a 10-foot setback minimum in the back. We always try to hold a 25-foot setback. So you think about it, 25 feet from the street, 25 feet from the back, that's 50 feet. That only leaves you 75 feet for a house depth, right? Because we know people are gonna want a backyard. They don't wanna walk out and run into the fence. But on the cul-de-sac lots, it becomes a little more difficult because you're kind of squashed in because of the cul-de-sac. So you have to build a lot shallower home in that area.
Yep, these sevens, the only ones they're asking for.
Right. Well, that's what I was asking, what's the average? See if
Right.
there was any more than those 7.
No, sir.
Well, I'll make the motion, we accept the variance for the setback for these 7 lots as indicated.
I second.
Do you have on the lots, as you have witnessed through some of our earlier agenda items, that we have caught ourselves by not covering all the bases? So do you have lot numbers that we can reference these 7 to, that we can put in our minutes? So, not to say it would happen, but down the road, if it was like, oh, well, let's make it this lot, not this lot.
Yes.
That's a good point.
I should just go ahead and pass the rest of this out. Actually, it's actually on here, and we can go over this later, but if you look at this one specifically, so the 2 lots here that are red, so those are lots 3 and 4, and you see there's an 8 with a circle around it on lot 8.
Okay.
That means that's the block.
Okay.
So it's lots 3 and 4 in block 8. The one over here on the cul-de-sac, sorry. Can y'all see that?
You're good at it.
This one here, which shows lot 7,
But
it's in block 1.
I don't see which 6.
Does that make sense?
So look for the hexagon, David, is the block number 1, and then the lots along it.
6 lots.
So here's the block in the circle. That's
Okay.
block 8, so that's lot 3 and 4 in block 8.
Okay.
This is block 1. So you're lot 7, block 1. And this says 2, right? Correct? Yeah. So that's lot 7, block 2, lot 8, block 2.
Okay.
And then this one would be lot 7, block 3.
Okay.
Well, what I'm saying is though, you're talking 7 lots, right?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Actually,
Yeah, that was,
I miscounted.
It's on our paper too that you sent, that we got, it's only 6, shows 6 lots.
Yeah, it is only 6. My apologies.
If there comes up to another one that didn't get highlighted, we would address it. But right now, I've got block 1, block 7. Let's change the motion.
Yes.
to say Block 1, Lot 7, Block 2, 7 and 8, Block 3, Lot 7, Block 8, 3 and 4.
I did go to A&M, so I can't count.
That I fully understand. But
Oh, no.
I knew somebody. I knew somebody.
Oh,
would.
okay. Good job, I like that. So you have the block numbers? All right. I accept that amendment to.
Now we understand, okay.
So gave the motion, who gave the second?
Jimmy.
Mr. Jimmy, you agree with the amendment to the motion and the second to list those 6? Good. Any other questions or statements of clarity? All right, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, the motion carries.
Thank you. And I would welcome maybe even afterwards, if y'all have any other thoughts on the product itself, 2 garage versus 1 car garage, that type of
Yes,
thing. Because we definitely want to, like I said, come in at just the right rate.
What's the entrance? Where's it gonna be, the entrance? I know that.
It's right off the railroad.
Right by my lot.
Right by your lot?
You on that one?
Yeah.
You didn't sell?
You can sell it, 'cause she's
Yeah,
gonna
it's
sell it.
coming right off that.
What kind of, are you doing a really cool entrance or what?
Well, so that's not my
That's
side of it. That's
okay.
the developer side. We do work with them.
Okay, just curious, not that it matters, I'm just.
No,
Yeah.
I made the glitch in there.
You
Yeah.
did you? Put
If
it
she,
in the way
if she
to go.
were
I
to
love
deed
it.
this over, we could put an
It's
awesome
really cool, but
entry monument right there.
look what you're dealing with.
I might
I
get at
don't
least
know.
some space.
There you go.
That's terrible.
But thank y'all.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
10C, well, before we, anybody need a break?
No, I'd just like to, if we could add into the minutes for the previous motion, just for the clarity portion also, even though it was pretty cut and dry, we could have it stated that the variances that we were given was for lots, portion of 14 and 15, and then lot 16 was the previous for JNS.
Oh, that's a good point.
That's a
Yeah.
good, yeah.
Yeah.
And then lot 16. That was where the variances were given on the JNS motion.
Ten C, discuss and act on closure of Commerce for Christmas Parade, Saturday, December 21st, 2024.
Council, this is the regular closure for the Chamber Christmas Parade, starting on 8th, correct? 9th, I'm sorry. And they're gonna get, as usual with TxDOT, and just to let them know what's going on.
You're doing the same route usually, like going to Legion and all
All right,
that?
start at Catholic Church and then the Legion Hall.
I'll make a motion, we accept, just, let the road closure happen on Saturday, December 21st.
I'll second.
Motion by Alderman Bourne, second by Alderman Hampton. All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, motion carries. 10D, lease agreement. Discuss and act on lease agreement between the City of Wallis and Chamber of Commerce.
Mayor, I'd like to discuss it, it's not form of a motion at this time. I agree with the Chamber of Commerce that it's hard to get any money here in town. They're working on a limited budget. But at the same time, the people sitting right here, up here, are, their first responsibility is to the city and the city people, the people living here, not the chamber and not the business people. And I would like to, I would like to consider, have the council consider at this time while we're discussing it, to, have the chamber pay $20 a month, cover, utilities and whatever little bit of expenses we have. $20 a month for a 1-year contract. And, I'd like to have it up for discussion if anybody wants to talk about it. I'm not putting it in form of a motion at this time.
I like your motion. I agree with you, Mr. Mark. I have no problem with the yearly. In a way, I would like to see it monthly, but if we could have something in the contract, if and only, we have been asked by some businesses to have like a startup office, and we have no space to give them. Originally, the rooms over here, that was an administration a long time ago, that their intent was to help businesses as a startup, not as a permanent office, but a startup office to get a business on their feet. I would say that in the event that somebody comes to us asking for rental space to start a business, then maybe we could go to the chambers and say, look, we may have to break the contract for that reason.
Just know that we just do a month-to-month contract.
How much do we charge the business that's existing there per month?
$500.
500?
We've only really got one.
Okay, yeah, just the one business. 500 a month? It's an insurance, like, security company, isn't it? What is it then? Security? Okay, well, I think $20 is fair. I think that's a good deal, but I agree with Clark on maybe bring the time in, maybe quarterly.
That's probably even better. The month-to-month would be,
That's tight.
That's a pain,
Yeah.
it's not like paperwork nightmare.
and then, every quarter we would have to be reapproving this, and the chamber would have to come back. That's where, I think if we had it somewhere in here, an agreement where the chamber would understand that, hey, we. Yes, ma'am.
In the lease, it does state that it's renewable on year to year, but in the event that either party, be the city or the chamber, one needs to leave, or the one, you say that city, we
30 days.
need your space, it has to be 30 days. So, to me, a year would be
That's fair
fine,
enough.
and
That's
it's
good.
just
Fair
to
enough.
the terms that's in the contract.
I'm saying, in the event that something like that happened,
Right.
where,
Is that in there?
so, I'm funding for that time for that.
As long as we have.
So do you want to make that into a motion now?
Yeah, I saw it. It's line. Where did I think I saw that?
So who's going to write this new
Line two,
lease
right?
agreement?
It automatically renews every year, but then we change the terms to say.
So do we want to
This
just
one
edit this
automatically
one?
renews every year. You want it to automatically renew every year? Or come back?
If we do a new one, it would be,
It automatically renews
It's not in
unless
this?
you
Okay.
give them a 30-day notice. So
It's a bid contract.
Yeah,
have
we
it
should
renewed
just
every
renew the
year.
contract.
We're done with that.
okay,
So Mr. Mark,
ma'am,
I say we go through this commercial lease that's in front of us and amend as we go, and then as to what you think your motion's going to be.
well, looking at the contract here, go ahead.
No, I just didn't hear how long the lease agreement's for.
this
So-
one renews every year
No.
unless you give them 30-day
A year.
notice.
What's the proposed,
Right now it's a year.
Well, we haven't come to that yet.
oh,
But, okay, I'll move that we use the existing contract as is with a quarterly payment of $20 a month.
So $60.
$20 a month, quarterly, $20 a month. That comes up to $60.
Yes, sir. Quarterly payment, 60, okay. That will amend, line item 3. Tenant shall pay the landlord as rent quarterly $60 quarterly payment, right?
Click your quarterly payments.
Is that the same as 240 a year?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, if my math stays
Well,
with me.
it sounds better at $20 a month.
Is everything else in there look okay?
As Sheila brought up, do you want it to renew automatically every year, or do we want them to come back to council every year to renegotiate it?
I think come back to council, renegotiate every year.
So we need to change the automatic statement. But it also says automatically until either party provides written notice of termination, which is a standard commercial lease. And because I originally wrote this, this is a standard commercial lease where it does a 30-day notice. So you already have either party provides written notice. So you don't want to have written notice. Is that what you're saying? You want them to automatically have to come back?
No, you still
30
want.
days.
A year.
No.
I think we would still need.
We can do the 30-day written notice at any time, but if nobody comes up with 30-day notice, it'll be renewed every year.
Right.
Or discussed or adjusted every year.
Well, so line item 2, the tenure of the lease shall be for 1 year and automatically renews until either party provides written notice.
Correct.
So that doesn't require them to come for council, is what I'm trying to say. Do you want to change that language? No.
I believe so, yes.
We would need to take out the automatic renewal.
Well, that's what we do with this now anyways, but when the year comes up, I think she put it in October this time, it's for review for the following year.
I mean, you could say automatically, what date would you put on that too for the renewal? As of what date?
January, December, that's when the lease is up in January.
Right. I'm just making a point about what needs to be added in here.
Right.
And then how we're going,
Well, if we do quarterly, do we have to renew quarterly?
no.
We're just saying the payment is quarterly.
There's one of the things that you
It renews annually.
That's okay.
So line item 10, the leaseholder shall meet the terms, policies, order, codes, laws of all government established and have an authority over the property. So we require them to come in and renew anyway. So
Right.
I'm thinking, to Alice's point, it's kind of covered.
Just change the money.
Yeah, I don't understand what that quarterly thing. If we want to pay it in advance, can we pay it in advance, or do we have to wait till every quarter to pay it?
No, pay in advance.
Except that we terminate, have to say that.
Y'all, it's funny, but
I think you'd pay quarterly.
Yes, sir.
I just want to be clear on it. So even though you're agreeing to a 1-year contract with the chamber, that contract can be terminated at any time.
With
30-day
30-day notice.
notice, yeah. It's already in there. Yeah.
Okay.
That's not.
It's an open contract. You ain't got anything to it.
Not really.
no, it's just not. Anybody want to give a motion on this?
I'll make the motion that we accept the contract as stated and then with the amendment of line item 3 to state quarterly payments, $60 quarterly payments to be made. And the rest of it's kind of, listen, we can call the note anytime. So. Mhm. So that's my motion.
I'll second it.
Motion as stated by Ms. Halpin, seconded by Alderman Bourne. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it.
When is this effective? When is the effective date of it?
January.
So this year,
Y'all
2025?
just continue doing what you're doing.
T&E was covered during the public works update. 10F, deep ditch issues. Discuss and possible action on how to inventory problem areas and consider dirt from current grant to be used toward fix of deep ditches from previous grant work.
Mr. Mayor, I kind of brought this up because I have several citizens, and I know Clark, you have too, and I'm personally disclosure, you know, I have a ditch that's too deep as well. But I didn't know if it was possible or what it would take to consider some of the dirt coming out of this current grant to replace some of the bad deep ditches that were obviously dug too deep for the Harvey grant, if that was even something that could be done. I don't know, because it's, where are they taking the dirt now out of the current grant?
I don't think you'd be able to do that because the culverts are level with the ditch now. And if you put dirt in there, you're gonna be stopping up the culverts.
I think it depends on which ditches you're talking about,
Yes. Okay.
because I know mine's not that way. One of the properties, but,
Mine's not either.
so I think too, when I suggest this though, it would take some kind of plan to evaluate which one would legitimately, without messing up the original grant intent of the water, because there's no question the Harvey grant helped Grisham Street and Elm Slope quicker out. There was benefits from that work that was done on the Harvey grant, but there's areas where it's out of whack, where like it's deeper than the culvert, it's not flowing, like the high spot, why is this so deep? And I don't know what actions we need to take or how, or if we just talk to people like Royce and then say, this is obviously off, or I don't want to have to hire a whole nother company to come evaluate it. I don't know how much work's involved with this. I'm just throwing it out there because we've had so many complaints about the Harvey grant deep ditches, which has caused us some steps on this grant. So
Where, and I don't recall what all happened on the last grant, but I know there was some discussion afterwards. At one time, all that dirt was stockpiled where the old cotton gin was.
Mm-hmm.
And then it disappeared. And that may have been part of the grant. And when I say disappeared, to me it disappeared.
Right.
I don't know if in part of the grant or whatever, that was part of the contractor, that was their dirt, or they disposed of, I don't know. And so I don't know what we're doing now with it. I don't know if it's being stockpiled anywhere. If it is, is that dirt, if it's not suitable to be put back into somewhere, is that suitable for us to use in Menard Park or something, whatever? So whatever this dirt is that we have, I don't think we need to let it go away.
Well, so far, the dirt that has been dug up on this existing grant has been hauled off to basically whoever's asked for them to come to take dirt, that they want dirt, is being hauled off to wherever they're at, to individuals.
My ditch is not from the hurricane, it's when I built my house. And I sold the city an easement a couple of years before that. And they dug the ditch a foot deeper than the culverts are. And Royce has done a great job about helping us deal with mosquitoes, because there's always standing water. He's done some more work on it a few times, and we're getting there. But I mean, it seems like it was, even before me, it was a constant problem that these ditches were being dug long before these grants ever came around.
Well, you know, that's what's happening right now with this existing grant is they're digging the ditches out deeper than the culverts and not replacing the culverts. They say they're gonna come back and replace them, but I haven't seen it.
That's a mosquito problem
Well,
too.
I guess to Belinda's, original portion, what can we do with, do we know, is it stated anywhere in the contracts about where this dirt is to go? Are they supposed to sell it, haul it off?
No, the only thing it states in the contract is that anybody wants dirt, that they can submit address, their name, where they want it to go. As long as it's not in a flood zone or in a wetland area, and the contractor feels like it's not gonna cost him, like, they're not gonna haul it 20 miles away. So if it's within a reasonable area close to town, they'll haul it there until you tell them no more. So I know they've hauled a lot out to like the tree farm right here out of town. So I mean, there's nothing in the contract that says it's ours, and they're not selling it, to my knowledge. The only thing I would caution on this is you will end up getting a lot of glass, rocks, debris.
Right. It's not necessarily
in
clean.
this stuff. And if people are wanting to use it, and I caution them all the time when they come and ask me, I said, look, you're gonna get a lot of debris in it, and we're not cleaning it out. But you get it hauled into your ditch and people, and I know why, but people go out and start mowing, and next thing you know, they're gonna start hitting rocks, and they're gonna start glass. And so I would just caution on that part before we just absolutely just dive into it.
That's a very good point. I understood, yeah.
Yeah, and again, I just wanted to bring it up for discussion, not necessarily a decision, but us to consider if we could reuse some of this, and maybe, but how do we go about evaluating which ditches legitimately would need it? I don't know how hard that would be, Royce. I mean,
Well, I think pretty much the first contract when I first got here, I'd pretty well be willing to say that everybody that got the ditches dug out in front of their property would say it needs to be filled in. I'm pretty confident in saying that. But no, I understand what you're saying. The thing is, again, I know we've had some areas right now with the contractor that's here now and the engineer that they've looked at some of these ditches and they propose they're going to fill in. I'm not an engineer, but I don't particularly like that, because the first thing's going to happen, you get a big rain, and what's going to happen? All that fresh dirt's going to wash out.
and that's the thing too. That's why I wanted to discuss this.
Especially the fast-moving ditches that we
Right.
have, you know.
I mean, the bigger ones that I'm talking about is our neighbor across the street there on Guyler. Yeah, it's an extremely deep ditch.
But like that,
Yeah.
if there's not city utilities feeding, what can be done is talk to the landowners and have more dirt removed
Agreed.
as time allows, as
Make that-
they have
make that
time,
s-
and make the slope 3-to-1 and 4-to-1 with the landowner's approval.
Yes.
I would also say that we should shut down anybody getting any dirt until we figure these ditches out.
Royce, do you, right now, if we just gave you the permission to look at like any ditches that are holding water to where Phil could work, and give you the permission to have them dump it there and y'all smooth it out, it could be as basic as that for those limited cases, because like Mr. Mark stated, the ones I've looked at, any dirt going in is gonna make a hump. Everything, and I've not been very thorough, but the few places I've gone and looked at deep ditches, because I haven't gone over by y'all's house admittedly, so evidently there may be limited cases where this dirt adding to the ditch would help.
Well, we can look. I mean, that's not a problem. But again, like I said, I understand like Mr. Mark's talking, and I'm not disagreeing with these ditches were dug too deep. But the problem is now you go back in and fill this fresh dirt in, the first big rain we're gonna have, it's gonna wash it all out again.
Yes, sir.
Because it's not set, it's not packed. Now, like Mr. Laverne's case, the ditch he is referring to, I think that easement, that ditch and culverts were put in with the purpose of water trying to flow a different direction. But I checked on this, like right now, what was engineered in, and that's not the case any longer.
Okay.
So, yeah, he's gonna have basically just standing water, so, yeah, filling in his, and it's below the culvert, yeah, that would work in his case.
And now
And
what
it would
I'm,
work in some cases around town too, but.
all I'm saying is if we give you the green light to use your judgment in those limited cases to use the dirt that's been proposed, would that make everybody, would that be a good approach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good approach, it probably ain't gonna work, but
Well, like you said, where it's holding,
Right.
there's not a lot of water flow. In his mind and his experience, where it's gonna work, trust him to use that dirt where it's gonna work. Where it won't work, if a load's got too much glass, you can reject it, you know what I'm saying? It's common sense to me, if we got a few instances where we're holding water and it's not gonna cause water to try to go uphill, let's utilize the dirt, use those spots.
so we're gonna stockpile all the dirt from now forward.
I don't believe nobody said nothing about
It's not
stockpiling
on
from
there.
now
No, use
forward.
Well, you got, what are you gonna do? You gonna dig a ditch over there and where are you gonna haul it? You gonna wait for somebody to tell you where to haul it to, or, I mean, you gotta stockpile it somewhere to have it there when Mr. Laverne comes up and says, hey, I need some dirt in my ditch. Okay, let's go
That's
get it
not what
off
we're
the
saying.
stockpile.
That's not what we're saying, Mr. Mark. He's gonna go around, he already knows of one spot and maybe a few others where there's water holding.
Where
So
you-
the next time, and you're over this now, the next time, so however you wanna do it,
Where are you gonna get the dirt?
when they dig it out of the ditch and put it in a dump truck, you say, hey.
That's what I'm
take that
talking
over
about.
there.
You gotta
gotta stop.
stockpile it somewhere.
No, it's in the dump truck. They just put it in a dump truck.
The thing, before we get too deep into this, we probably need to check with the engineer
Yeah,
to make sure that there's no environmental clearance, that we're taking from one
that's a very good point.
to someplace that might not have been environmentally clear. I don't know what would affect the contract and the grant that he's working on now. That's just a basic phone call. We could ask him that.
Well, we'd have to, because that's an active grant.
Yes.
Well, it's like what Belinda said, you know, the main thing of this is not necessarily an action, but a discussion for a possible action. So, I mean, we're discussing, so,
That's true.
and we brought up very good points all around.
So what I'm gathering, Mayor, what you were saying, you want to try like get an inventory list of locations is what you're after first?
No, my proposal was just discussion to see if there was Mr. Laverne's ditch and a couple others where it would, you know, be okay. It was just discussion. I'm not making, I can't make a motion. It's all on these to make the motion. I was just bringing it up for discussion.
I mean, if we want to make any possible action to that, I could make a motion to do what, as Mayor said, let Royce do just the obvious and use his discretion, and he can then, once he checks with the grant guy, I don't think it's a problem if Jimmy wants a load of that dirt in the ditch and Royce thinks it's gonna work. I don't know if that'd be a problem.
There again, it's city property. I don't want people to be thinking that, from my understanding, they bought that ditch. So Mr. Laverne simply was just mentioning a ditch that he's aware of. It's not up to Mr.
That's
Laverne.
true. That's
No
true.
request.
You're right. No,
No, and it's not
no.
your property, it's city property. You were
That's
just
right.
mentioning about a ditch that's behind you that you feel like is above somewhat holding water.
So let me rephrase. I'll make a motion that we let Royce use his discretion about possible, using the existing dirt that's being pulled into certain locations around town at his discretion. And of course, talking to the property owner.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion is stated
Yeah.
by Alderman Hoffman, seconded by Alderman Lauren. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No.
I'm not voting.
Oh, because of that. Okay, so we got.
If you abstain,
No problem.
you have to announce the reason why you're abstaining.
I'm staying because he's talking about doing something that was the easement that I sold the city.
Yes,
Possibly.
good deal. So 3 ayes.
And that's just for full disclosure for everything.
No, that's
So
fine.
that's why you
No, I
have
agree
to
with
state
you.
why you're abstaining.
I agree with you.
3 ayes, 1 nay. The ayes have it and the motion carries. 10G,
Did voice my word.
discuss and act on 2-year renewal option for depository bid from 2022, which will extend to January 26 at same terms and rates. First National Bank depository contract.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we renew our 2-year contract with First National Bank.
I'll second.
Alderman Clark was the motion and Alderman Halpin second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. Motion carries. 10H, resolution number 2024-13. Consider an act on adopting resolution 2024-13, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Wallis, Texas, adopting a covered applications and prohibited technology policy as required by Texas Senate Bill 1893 of the 88th Legislature.
My motion we accept.
And what, to the people that's watching the video later and maybe online now, what this is it satisfies the requirement of the bill that the city adopt a policy regarding the use of TikTok by city employees, where the council finds that the policy attached satisfies the requirements of the bill and desires to adopt, and now therefore saying that basically no city, if I understand this right, no city employees or computers, etc., can be accessed to TikTok because of the fear of coming back in from TikTok from
China.
foreigners.
Because it's a Chinese owned company.
So I made that motion to accept the
Okay.
resolution.
I'll second.
Alderman Halpin, motion. Alderman Clark, second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 10I, designation of representative and alternate for 1093 Rails to Trails. Discuss and act on designating a representative and alternate for 1093 Rails to Trails, local government corporation, Wallis, position on the board.
So, Mayor, I've been on there, Mr. King and I have been there for 3 years. I think it's important we keep our representation to affect what happens on the 1093. It's a 7-entity organization. So I'd like to continue to serve as a representative on the LGC for the board. And are you interested, King? So Jimmy's interested?
David Mark might be interested.
I think he is, yeah. And then we have room for 2 alternates, and I wanted to let James King sit down at the beginning to remain as an alternate. And what that means is on the local government corporation board for the Rails to Trails is if either I or Jimmy aren't there, we have 2 votes on the board of 9 that James or anybody else who might want to be on it. It doesn't have to be a council person. It can be anybody. If anybody else would like to be an alternate.
Well, I'll make said motion that yourself, Melinda, and Mr. Laverne be on the committee, and Mr. James King as an alternate.
Okay. We don't have a second alternate, it's okay.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Alderman Clark, seconded by Alderman Bourne. For the motion as stated, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No.
The ayes have it, the motion carries.
So just to clarify, Linda, your representative, and Jimmy?
Yeah, there's 2 spots that are on the board. Wallis has 2 spots. It's just like
So
Is it-
you and Jimmy will be representatives and.
And then
alternate-
James isn't,
James will be
he,
one alternate.
alternate.
And I suppose we should have said you two, because y'all were on the motion, abstained because they were on the motion. I guess include that in the notes.
You don't have to on a motion like that, I don't think.
No. It's just like HGAC or
Okay, no problem.
Cub Scouts.
Cub Scouts. Yeah, Cub Scouts.
10J, alternate municipal court judge. Consider an act on approving Kyle Frederickson as alternate municipal court judge.
Yeah, Judge Berger couldn't make it tonight. So Kyle, he used to be our investigator. He retired. I don't know if you remember him. Nickname Peanut. But he's interested in doing this alternate judge, and Bernice, Judge Berger's approved him or is willing to accept that.
Which we're required to have an alternate judge, so.
Yes.
I just want to point out, you have a budget for one. That's all.
Yeah, but it will.
He doesn't, only serves if she's not.
If, yeah. So
Right.
the chances
When
are,
she's not there,
He
then
gets it.
she does not get
She
paid.
doesn't get paid, and that's what we get paid
no,
out.
she gets paid.
If
She's
she's not
paid every
there.
single month. Contract. Even if she doesn't. Yeah. She shows up multiple times a month, but.
Well, we may have missed that in the
I'm not against
budgeting,
that.
but I know Kyle, and I know we have to have an alternate municipal court judge, so I move that we accept Kyle Fregerson as the alternate.
Okay, there's a motion before us, but before I receive a second, what are we gonna do about payment, and do we need to change the budget? Before you had said we can't just add stuff without having them.
You can do it just.
Later, if we ever use them.
Might not ever use it.
Is this something we've got to get done this month? Or can we figure out?
I don't think we have to do it this month.
I would say let's table that and we can come back next month and figure out if there needs to be an amendment made.
Well, is it any kind of contract with how we pay her?
Yeah, the contract,
Hourly.
she's paid, but, yeah.
Yeah, the associate judge gets paid hourly, but I don't remember, I'd have to look back on what it was for Gomez.
But I was under the understanding she gets paid when she shows up. So she's salaried.
She's not paid hourly. She gets 1 hour at whatever she gets for that day. She doesn't clock, she didn't give a time sheet, she didn't get any, she's contract, she's salary, she's whatever. She's the only employee like that. I mean, everybody else should be, but it's difficult in QuickBooks with the amount of 80 hours, 2,080 hours a year to break it up by contract. So if y'all want to change that, we could discuss that.
I agree with
If
Clark.
she doesn't
I think
show.
we'll table it. Figure this thing out.
Just to know where the
Look
money.
at her contract.
Yes,
See
we
what it
can
says.
relook at it, so we'll just,
You
I'll
say she's
withdraw.
hourly, but she's under salary, she's either or.
No,
She's
she's talking
salary.
about the alternate as hourly.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, what about, and
Associate,
the judge is salary?
yes. That's how it was in the past.
Okay.
so
Whatever
I'll
one you
withdraw
have is
my
fine.
motion for the moment.
Okay. I hear consensus to table.
Yes.
10K, EDC updates. Considering possible action on EDC updates.
I know we talked about the revitalization grant, so you're aware of all that. The EDC is working on its own website so that we can do the features that most EDCs do, which is to have information about data, demographics, businesses, incentives, and so we're going to be hopefully linking, the request is that we can link from the city site where it says economic development, that becomes a link that would take them over to the new site for EDC, and it's a seamless kind of deal. I don't really see that we're linking over to another site, but that's pretty standard with what most communities do. So if y'all have an issue, then we kind of need to know it now. So.
Sounds good.
Okay. We're still working on the up ahead signs. When you first come in town, there's that I guess it's blue that has white. Right now, there are faded white squares in it, and it's up ahead, what kind of businesses are up ahead. And we haven't been overly successful in figuring out how to replace that sign. So if anybody knows where we can go forth and find that sign, the makers of that, or where we can find that design that doesn't cost 2 arms and 3 legs.
Who put it in the first place? I think it's
Chamber
a
of
text
Commerce.
dot sign, because I looked on text dot and they had kind of those kind, but it's like she said, I didn't like what I saw and they were pretty pricey.
The one that's by Los Flores we did.
That's a different,
Yeah.
that's
So you're
different than what
talking
we're
about
talking about.
upcoming businesses? I think you have to go to the county commissioner and they talk about text.
Anyway, yeah.
Because it's not on TxDOT property, it's on private property. So that's why we haven't thought that would be. So
Anyway.
we can revisit with the TxDOT regional person
Well, I
and
don't know
see
if
that's
that's the right one, but yeah.
Yeah. There's one at each entrance into town that I feel like we should be promoting. I want to remind the council that Betty Russo will be at the EDC meeting, because it was requested that we have it as an EDC event versus the city council. And she's coming in to help explain what economic development, how the city, and to the council members, to the citizens, how the city and economic development work. And we'll start the meeting. So we normally are on Wednesday, but it's actually going to be on Tuesday, because that was the date she had available. And it'll start at 6, which y'all are accustomed to having happen.
And to remind everybody, this is the governor's representative
Right,
for
thank you.
economic development.
Yeah, this is the regional person for the Governor Abbott's office.
December 3rd.
December 3rd at 6 o'clock.
Here?
Here, yeah. We may have to have a small meeting beforehand or after it, but probably after it if we have to do one. Because we do have the developer that's doing the 2 buildings, the 2 spaces next to the Empanada place, is moving forward with adding on to their building. They have their permits in, and they're looking at seeing what assistance CDC has to help them. It's going to be, and I never pronounce it right, Chismismas? Chismosas. It's a taco place out of Rosenberg. We don't have any say on what type of business gets to go in there, so.
But they're actually they have several stores, right?
I think this is going to be their 5th location. And they're everybody I've talked to said, oh, good, we like them. And so that will be going. And then right next door to them, he's going to fix that up as a potential retail space. And I've heard that one of the wives would potentially want to do a boutique in there. So, and y'all may have noticed that somebody has been working down at the 2 smaller spaces to the left of what I call the Palo bin, because I can never pronounce the proper name. The lady who owns the family that owns that building are just taking it upon themselves to get rid of all the whited windows. They're putting in whole new windows. They're repainting. They do have at least one of those buildings has been leased for a long time to a company that does computer type stuff. She wasn't quite sure what they do. We have asked her because part of our whole preservation district and the view that we like to have for downtown is not to have the trash bags or paper over the windows, because all it does is look like nobody's in there. So she's willing to have get blinds if somebody will help her measure it and all that kind of stuff. So we're working it with that. Very nice lady, very, very sweet person. So we're excited that she's taken it upon herself, because she wanted to see, improve everything just like everybody else. And then the investor who bought the 2 spaces next to the Empanada, he bought it strictly because he wanted to see, he was tired of seeing Wallis not be at its full potential. So, and he actually offered to buy the 2-story building, but wasn't successful in getting them to do it. So, unfortunately. Let's see what else. Oh, we also voted, we mentioned at the last council meeting that we would check as EDC if we would help fund the my fee to do the grant pre-application. And so the EDC has voted to offer to pay half up to $2,500. So that will help a little bit in relieving what's going on, because We can only do half because of it being half residential and half commercial. So the hydro, the public water supply system hydro modeling study is being worked on, but it's not completely moving forward because we're waiting for the water tower to complete, because depending upon what they do there, depends upon what the pressure is that's coming out of that particular well, and he needs that pressure in order to make the calculations. So as soon as they get that up and running, we'll be moving forward on that. And then I think y'all are aware that we were doing an environmental, it's not really environmental study, but it's to figure out on that 8th Street property, because it floods so bad and we need elevation done to make sure what can it ever be built on. Otherwise, if it can't, then we need to figure out an alternative. So the EDC's having that done, and that should be finished any day now.
Right.
So we know how much, and as you're talking dirt, because part of it is how much dirt do we have to add on the property. But I've been told that what would be coming out of the ditches would not be suitable for fill dirt on a property to actually have weight on it. So, and I guess that's about it.
There's one more business, a nail place,
Nail salon.
right where Subway used to be.
Oh, that's
somebody's
awesome.
going in there?
Yeah.
That's great news.
Full permit, so.
Great.
At the city market.
There
See?
where the
Town's growing.
Subway used to be.
Can I
Finally,
make a
he reached
suggestion,
it.
EDC?
Yes.
Can you get the downtown buildings to have Christmas lights across the top?
We discussed that for this month, and I mean, you know, unfortunately, we're kind of short to time to try to figure out how to get that and get everybody's approval to get it done. But, because I don't think each individual owner would want to do it. It's probably going to have to be something that we pay somebody to get approval to be on their roof, pay somebody who has insurance to be up there. And,
Okay, never mind.
but
Yeah, it's not like when
Okay.
Steve ran
You
and
can
lights
just get a
by
ladder up the
himself.
front and I'll put them up. I'm just,
Wait a minute, do what? I missed that.
we, in the past, Steve Bocal had done lights along the top of the roofs of the buildings downtown,
Okay.
Christmas
And
lights.
it was very cool.
And it was very cool. And if y'all noticed the lights that we did over First Street for the Brants and Empanada anniversary, we left them up there, and Josh Dijon has a timer put on it, and most of the cost comes off his building anyway. So we keep those on it for a certain hour at night just to brighten up the downtown area.
Good.
That was good.
Okay.
All right.
Anybody? Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank
I guess we'll go into executive session now.
Yes.
8:57
You need to stay while you're going into executive session.
to, real property 551.072. Deliberations about real property.
Thank you.
All right, we're back out of closed session at 9:14. And Sheila, I'll get with, to fill out that form. But no action had to be taken. Here's one. No action had to be
Thank
taken.
you.
As far as future agenda items, I gave Miss Sheila, as mentioned earlier, a whole stack of those ordinances that, it's been 3 months since we had a town hall. But the ones we did go through, and there's one that wasn't in that stack, and it's the animal one that had lots of notes on it, and it's in my pickup. Saw it the other day, so I gotta get that one, but,
I'm glad you're pursuing that.
well, I may be done with that. It depends on, I mean, I hate to continue having town halls and these people give input, and we need to see
Not
what
do
kind of
anything.
progress is made on the rest of them, and then, so, we definitely need to, whatever, and that's up to y'all, how y'all wanna pursue tackling them. Whether it's in regular meeting, special meeting, I don't know, that's up to y'all. I just submitted all the ordinances that we've gone through.
I would like to review prior that animal one. There's some things I'd probably like to put, if they ain't not in there already, because there's been instances in this town where people have moved in and had livestock, and it's like been right up against somebody's house, you know, and as much as we're a rural community, you know, I don't wanna wake up and have a cow and a horse 5 feet away from my bedroom.
Yeah.
Nope. I sneak enough. I don't need
You want that good fertile ground?
And then what else? We talked about something else being on the
remember what I had
agenda
last
earlier.
All individual.
I was thinking,
Sheila is on the ball.
I know there's something.
oh, the cameras,
Cameras,
or
The lights.
lights and cameras.
lights and cameras for the,
Yeah,
Barn and Menard.
yeah. And the lights at the sewer plant and the barn. Royce, y'all can put those lights back. Y'all can put those lights up, right?
Yeah, I mean,
We just need to really purchase.
I could get, yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's those security lights on the outside of the barn, and you put eyes in them every 6 months,
Yeah.
they're obsolete anymore. So, I mean, we could get some pricing for some LED lights.
LED, yeah.
Yeah, and those seem to hold out pretty good.
I don't believe it could be, but it ain't worth a shot asking. That wouldn't be what would be considered on the tech fund, would it? I don't think so, but.
I mean, I don't know how we could swing that. If
I
we
didn't
could,
think so.
I wish we could, but I really don't see how we could swing it.
I don't either. I mean, I'm just thinking,
Really only-
if it was something in here, from there,
Exactly.
that would be different, but I
Well,
just,
it's like this guy had a couple months ago had our door locks went down. And we're gonna be able to probably pay him most likely out of that tech fund.
Yeah.
But the court is here.
correct, that's where,
Have you ever seen those big lights they advertise that are solar powered? You ever, because they're like commercial lights,
Yes, sir, I've seen those.
they're like less than $100.
Yeah.
And I mean, but those things are like long like this, and they got a big arm that comes out.
Kind of like a big street light.
Yeah, big street light.
Yeah, I've seen some of them on Amazon. You can buy a 4-pack of them for like $110 anymore. They're pretty cheap.
Yeah, they're big.
I'm talking about the regular electric ones for that you hardwire.
Oh, but they got some like that are solar powered.
Yes, right. I
They're
see.
big, and they're like about, I think like $79 or whatever.
Mr.
But these
Paul.
things, it's like, this thing is multiple lights inside this thing, and it's about that long.
Hey, Jimmy,
If
wait
you-
till we adjourn.
Oh, sorry.
what else about future agenda items? Anything else before we adjourn?
I don't,
Going once? All right, meeting adjourned.
Sorry, I'm letting you.